Does he have anything at all left in the tank? A couple of turns to go. Ryan Hunter-Reay leads in Indy.
Turn number 800 is upon us. Less than a car length is the difference. The final turn. Hunter-Reay to call the finish. The voice of the 500, Paul Page.
And it is Ryan Hunter-Reay that is going to lead Helio Castroneves across the line. Ryan Hunter-Reay has his first Indianapolis 500-mile race win.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
3 consecutive seasons, he came within an eyelash of winning a championship. So while the focus may be elsewhere.
From the Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama, it's time for the Indy Lights, presented by Cooper Tires, on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
On a brisk, cool morning here in Birmingham. Time to go qualifying for the Indy Lights Series, presented by Cooper Tires. This is the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. My name is Nick Yeoman, joined by Mark Janes here in the booth. We've got Jake Query and Rob Howden pitside for what should be a very intriguing half-hour qualifying session for the Indy Lights Series as we really kick off a day full of motorsports action here on the very tricky road course here at Barber Motorsports Park. And Mark, yesterday, both in the IndyCar and Indy Lights Series, things were clean. That's how these teams like it. But certainly some intrigue during the practice sessions yesterday as we saw numerous names all jumbled out throughout the time charts of the two practices.
Yeah, most notably Session 2. Ed Jones, Felix Sorrellis, Zach Feets find their way to the top. Neil Albarico had struggled throughout the course of the day, but he found some pace in the final session. Felix Rosenquist in that 14 completes the top 5, and was hanging around the bottom of timing and scoring after the second session yesterday. Includes Scott Anderson back in that 77 this weekend, and the 7 of R.C. Enerson. Always interesting when we get to qualifying, Nick, regardless of the series. It gives you an idea of other things they may have been working on in their respective practice sessions, especially if we see someone pop up from the bottom of the speed charts all the way up to the top 2 or 3.
Well, the interesting thing about R.C. Enerson, as you mentioned, who was 16th out of the 16 drivers in yesterday's second practice, is he paced the field as the fastest car during the morning practice session. Rob Howden, I know we saw some interesting tire strategies in yesterday's final practice, and certainly some teams on some different strategies as we start this 30-minute qualifying session this morning.
Yeah, there were certainly some differing approaches yesterday. I know that the Schmidt-Peterson guys went out with full fuel loads and their used tires as well. Late in that session, it was the Carlin drivers who were trying different setups on all 3 of their cars. They elected to put sticker Coopers on at the end of that session to see what the cars were going to do in full trim. And not surprising, they were able to work their way to the top of the charts with those new tires. Now, of course, that affects what we have here this morning. It's the Carlin team and Team Pelfrey, the only teams that did not roll out off the grid here with sticker Cooper tires. They're both on scuffs. Hargrove and Pedrohita went out on fresh tires late in that session as well. Everyone else waiting on. So they've got the chance to get out here early, get things rolling with a new set of tires, and looking up and down pit lane, virtually every team we have has 2 more sets of fresh sticker Coopers ready to go if they're needed here in qualifying.
It looks like all 16 drivers went out of the racetrack at least for one installation lap, and most of them have stayed on the track with the exception of Scott Anderson, Jake Query. I know a lot of these drivers out there building a little heat in those tires and getting those engines up to temperature, but I'm looking down on pit lane. I see a lot of jackets down there on this cool, brisk morning here in Birmingham.
Yeah, it's a little bit chilly. It's supposed to get into the low 80s later today, but of course the Alabama sun just now starting to peek through. So as a result of that here on actually 0 clouds today, it should be, right now it's a little bit chilly, but it'll warm up through the course of the day. A couple of things that make that of interest, Nick. Number one, we talk about the rubber being laid down on this track. Really serious and hard rains yesterday that essentially wiped this track clean, and now of course these Cooper tires will rubber it back down, and we'll see how that affects the way that these cars are handling on the track today versus, for example, yesterday. One guy who actually has perhaps a little fresher tires than anybody else in this session, and that is Scott Hargrove. The reason being, they had a problem yesterday with that Team Pelfrey machine. Turned out it was simply an oil pressure problem. Thought they had an electrical problem. It really limited his time yesterday out on the track. Turns out that they thought they maybe just had a bubbling problem in the oil and they weren't getting the proper pressure necessary. Once they got it fixed, they got him out. Whoa, we got somebody really squirrely. I think that was Felix Sorrells that just managed to straighten that machine back out here just to my left on the straightaway. He managed to get it going back in the right direction. But at any rate, Hargrove yesterday, they were really limited in what they were able to do. It wasn't until the very end of the last practice session that he was able to get out and get some laps.
Jake, Felix Sorrells is not alone in cars that are sideways. For those joining us on IndyCar.com or Mazda Road to Indy TV, you're getting a look at the onboard shot of Zach Veach almost for an entire full lap, and he's had a couple moments where he has got a little wide and done a little landscaping of some of the grass here at Barber Motorsports Park, as well as sliding that Bilardi Auto Racing machine around this racetrack. Mark, when we talked to numerous drivers throughout the day, whether it be on the IndyCar side, I know we heard from Marco Andretti who said it, and I know we heard from some Lights drivers as well, that a lot of guys like this racetrack because it's really put into the driver's hands. There's a lot of ways you can attack this course.
Yeah, and I would say adjustments are plenty throughout the course of this event. It is mainly, I think, due to the elevation changes as much as anything else. Zach with a wide exit off the final turn, coming back down the straightaway again, courtesy of his onboard camera. He sets up for turn number 1 and prepares to tackle the Alabama roller coaster. No question, this is a tight, tricky, sometimes very unforgiving race course, but Rob Houghton is, as Nick Yeoman said, one that drivers truly love.
Really interesting being down here on pit lane. A lot of the crews looking up and seeing how many drivers are actually just throwing that rear part of the car as they come onto the front straightaway, getting real loose coming onto the rumbles here as they come on. And even Kyle Kaiser, the 18 who rolls on here right now, sees that rear end kind of slip out. Kyle told me yesterday that he was surprised by the lack of grip in the low-speed corners. The high speed, of course, the aerodynamics takes over, but in the low-speed stuff, he had a lot of trouble with the car getting loose at the apex and getting obviously wheel spin as well, trying to come off the corner. As I did walk up and down pit lane, I had a look at the different aero approaches from the teams. As we know, everybody with a little bit of a unique approach to setup. Almost every driver with that rear wing fully stood up to get max rear downforce, but I did see that a couple of guys had the different gurney flap. Some of the guys with the smaller one, other guys with the larger strap. Front end, the front wing, a lot of different approaches in terms of where the front end wings are set, but everybody with that full rear wing stood right up in the rear part of the car.
Felix Rosenqvist at the top of the charts, and as I say that, R.C. Enerson jumps to the top of the charts, so disregard those practice times yesterday afternoon. Schmidt-Peterson's still got some very fast race cars that know how to handle some setups for this tricky racetrack. Enerson has been bumped to second as Santa Urrutia goes to P1. Now Kyle Kaiser goes to P1. So as speeds pick up, we're going to see a lot of change from that scoreboard. Kaiser at the top, Urrutia, Enerson, Rosenqvist, Stoneman, your top 5 as of right now. Mark James, we're 3 races into this season, 3 different winners. I think that's ultimately what makes this Light Series so good, and we saw it a year ago throughout the course of the year with really 3 drivers in the championship hunt throughout the way. We'll get to that in just a moment, but let's go back to pit lane. Rob Houghton down on pit lane with one of our Lights drivers.
Nick, I've got Scott Anderson here. He's got obviously a smaller program set up for this year. You don't want to have any issues at all, but you're already out of the car here in qualifying. Some kind of an issue with the back of the car, something possibly electrical or turbo. Got to be tough, you know, you're going to be starting from the tail of the field.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, it's definitely disappointing. But it's one of those things you can't control. So, I mean, really, I guess at this point, it's like look at race 1 as qualifying for race 2 and see what we can do in race 2.
Overall, you were pretty quick yesterday. Did you feel comfortable in the car here?
Yeah, the first practice I felt, I was kind of working on some things, and then second practice I think, yeah, I was starting to click. So I'm feeling pretty good, actually.
Good luck this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks.
Scott Anderson's day just got a little tougher, folks. He's going to be starting at the tail of the field for race number 1 this afternoon.
And Scott Anderson was not able to even complete one lap during qualifying, so the race this afternoon becomes even more important in terms of trying to lay down a quick lap for qualifying for race number 2 on Sunday. So Anderson, with no time in this qualifying session, as Rob mentioned, will start shotgun on the field, or really at the tail, it's starting 16th. So Kyle Kaiser, R.C. Enerson, Santi Urrutia, Shelby Blackstock, Zachary Clayman, DeMello, your top 5. Dalton Kellett is 6th. Felix Rosenquist is 7th. Dean Stoneman 8th. Zach Veach 9th. Andre Negrao is 10th, as we are about a third of the way through this qualifying session. Back to pit lane and check in with Jake Query.
Juan Piedrahita and as well Scott Hargrove came in. Both of them took brand new sets of those sticker Cooper tires. I talked with the team from Team Pelfrey about the incident yesterday with Scott Hargrove, and they said it only cost him about 10 to 15 minutes of the session. So he did get out and use up and scuff some tires. So he's on essentially the same tire rotation and strategy as everyone else. Rob?
Jake, we saw this at the start of the broadcast here, the start of the session. Both Team Pelfrey, who you're with, and myself up here with Carlin Racing, they started on those scuffed Coopers. Just like Team Pelfrey going to new stickers, same thing happening here for Carlin. They brought all 3 of their drivers in, and they are rolling out here with sticker tires now. Let's see if they're able to make any adjustments to go quicker and get themselves off the time chart.
As I mentioned, just about a third of the way through this qualifying session. So, Mark, at this point, you would expect plenty of heat in those engines, plenty of heat in those tires.
Yeah, well, you get back to our original comment talking about the schedule and the parity that exists so far. For those that want to put a stranglehold on the championship chase, they have the next few weeks, quite frankly, to do that. Once they leave here, a doubleheader weekend on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Then, of course, the Freedom 100 on the oval. And, Nick, if you don't have it together by then, it's going to be a long time before you climb back into the cockpit in a competitive situation. They'll race May 27th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they will not race again until the weekend of June 24th through the 26th when we return to Road America. So that's a pretty big gap.
That is a pretty big gap, and certainly I think last year, by that point in the season, once we got through the month of May, we really had those 3 championship contenders really picked out and evaluated in terms of Jack Harvey, Spencer Pickett, and Ed Jones. Jones, though, Mark, the only one who's back in Indy Lights, and certainly his goal, once again, for Trevor Carlin's team, who came oh so close to winning a championship a year ago, to try to take that next step up the podium and grab that title.
Yeah, guys that return that second year in a quest for a championship, oftentimes those best laid plans are derailed a bit by a bumper crop of rookies that come in behind them, and I think this year is certainly no exception to that. This is one of the most interesting blends in recent memory, I think, of quality returnees and solid newcomers and rookies for sure.
Felix Rosenquist is at the top of the charts. He's made his way to pit lane. Kyle Kaiser and Santi Urrutia still out of the racetrack. Zach Veach, he streaks that Bilardi Auto Racing car down the front stretch, as does Andre Negrao for Schmidt-Peterson, weaving back and forth to get a little bit of heat in those tires. Mark, this is an early session for Indy Lights, and considering when they're going to be racing later this afternoon, and then, of course, on Sunday, track conditions certainly a lot different than what they're going to see when they take the green flag.
Yeah, cooler, a little bit of moisture from the humidity, the dampness from overnight. I think everyone's done pretty well, though, and the sun has worked quickly to dry this racetrack. But, yeah, IndyCar session technically number 3 yesterday, a promoters test, but it'll roll off at 11 o'clock Central. And then Lights race number 1 is set to go just shortly after the completion of that. That's a 45-minute session, by the way. It'll roll off at 12 noon, and then we'll go IndyCar qualifying to wrap up the day at 2:55. All those times we're giving you Central time, by the way.
Boy, a little displeasure shown from Zach Veach with Santi Urrutia as they make their way through the S's down the backstretch. Not entirely sure what that was all about, but Zach a little gesture to the Pro Mazda defending champion there down the back straightaway. A couple reports on pit lane. Let's start with Jake Query.
Yeah, Shelby Blackstock, guys, just came in and went out on a new set of sticker Coopers. I think, Rob, he might be the last one to have put on, in other words, the last team to go ahead and go with those sticker tires. So I think virtually everybody now is out there and has at least once used a brand new set of sticker tires. Blackstock was the 5th fastest when he came in, so they like the balance on that car, put the stickers on him, and send him back out. Rob?
Yeah, first a quick note on what happened. I expect what happened with Zach Veach and Santi Urrutia. Santi had just left the pit lane on sticker Cooper, so obviously the car could be a little sketchy. Zach, I know, was on a flyer. He was on the racetrack at that point for a couple of laps, so probably not happy that he got checked up a little bit. But I was standing here with R.C. Enerson. He was P4 when he came into pit lane. They made an adjustment to the rear of the car, added a shim to put a little toe in the rear of that race car. So just a minor adjustment for R.C. Enerson as they put on new sticker Coopers.
Boy, Zach Veach tests the grass again, running around here this very tricky racetrack here at Barber Motorsports Park as he weaves through a little bit of traffic. It is Felix Rosenqvist, Kyle Kaiser, Felix Sorrells, Santi Urrutia, and R.C. Enerson, your top 5. Shelby Blackstock has moved to 6th. Zachary Clayman is 7th. Dalton Kellett 8th. Zach Veach 9th. And Dean Stoneman is 10th. Well, happy to have a guest join us here in the booth. He's a driver analyst for NBC Sports Network's coverage of the Indy Lights series. Anders Krohn, welcome into the booth. It's been a while since you've visited with us. We're still friends, right?
It has been a while, Nick. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be up here, and it's so competitive right now. I'm just looking at the times and how close they are. I mean, 5 cars within a 10th of each other. I mean, we've never seen that in Indy Lights before, have we?
What surprised you most so far through this season, 3 races in?
What surprised me most, I don't quite know. It's just that there doesn't seem to be one distinct team that has an advantage. It's always, so close to each other. And to me, it's just that it's so close between the teams. And I really think it speaks volumes of how Dallara developed this car and the level of the engineers and the teams that play, because, it's so close.
Anders, we've seen over the years throughout the history of the Indy Lights series drivers that come back for a second year. Experience seems to pay off. Driver like Kyle Kaiser, our current points leader here as we head into Barber Motorsports Park. How impressive you've been with the maturation of that young man and the win he picked up at Phoenix, dominating that race.
He's done such a good job, and it's almost like he picked up where Spencer Pigot left off. So it's kind of like he said, okay, I've got the team's honor on my back now. I've got to drive this team forward. I got to be the teacher now for Zachary Clayman DeMello, and I think he's doing a great job. So, boy, what a step forward he's made, and now 300s behind P1.
Certainly for the years that you ran in Indy Lights, it was kind of everyone trying to knock off Schmidt-Peterson at the top of the charts week in and week out. You see here in qualifying as Scott Hargrove goes P1 for Team Pelfrey. Felix Rosenqvist for Bilardi Auto Racing. Ed Jones now jumps to the top for Team Carlin. Kaiser with Juncos Racing. Some of these new teams, this new blood that's been pumped into Indy Lights. What's your impression of some of these newcomers that may be making their first start here in Indy Lights this year when it comes to Team Pelfrey, and then for some of those like Juncos and Carlin who are now in year 2?
Well, we were actually a little bit afraid when Carlin came in last year and they dominated St. Pete, and we thought, oh man, they're going to come in here and they're just going to dominate the series and it's going to be another Schmidt, run of dominance. But then it just became tighter and tighter and tighter, and I think now in its second year, it's even tighter than it's ever been. So I think it's very good because it means that any driver looking at this series knows that I can go to whichever team on the grid here and be competitive.
13 minutes left in this qualifying session. Santi Urrutia has gone to the top of the charts. Ed Jones is 2nd, Scott Hargrove 3rd, Felix Rosenqvist 4th, Kyle Kaiser for 5th. Rosenqvist and Kaiser both on pit lane. Rob, you've got an eye on those 2 Bilardi Auto Racing cars. Felix Rosenqvist, who is 4th, and Zach Veach, who's currently 11th.
Yeah, they're sitting here right now in pit lane getting ready to go. They already have new sticker Coopers on their trademark white and red Bilardi cars. So both these drivers just kind of hanging here waiting, set to go. They're watching the clock. Felix looking up at the tower as well, making sure he sees the results on the pylon. They're in no hurry right now to get on the racetrack. It appears to me like they're probably going to roll out for one more qualifying run.
Small issue for Juan Pedrahita in turn number 9, who spun on the racetrack. Indication is that he got going once again, and I will assume will come to pit lane to get those tires checked out. Anders Krohn from NBC Sports Network joins us. Santi Urruti at the top of the chart. I mean, this is a young man everybody's been watching here for a couple years on this Mazda Road to Indy ladder system. Awfully impressive, the Pro Mazda champion from a year ago.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about Santi was just the way he went about his championship run last year. He was never frightened when he qualified 7th or 8th. He just kind of took the points and accepted, okay, maybe this isn't my weekend. Let me put it together at another weekend and win the races. So that's really what won him the championship last year, was his consistency, and I know he's carried that same mindset into this year. Now, he's had a couple of DNFs this year already, but I still think he's carrying that same mindset.
R.C. Anderson jumps to the top of the charts. Back to pit lane and Rob Howden.
Hey, Nick, have a look down here. You know, you guys can see pit lane from here. It is packed right now. Everyone has come down into pit lane. I want to say all 3 Carlin cars are here. We have at least 2 of the Schmidt-Peterson cars here. There goes Felix Rosenquist just rolling out right now. This is going to be the run for the pole position here right now. 11 and a half minutes remaining. Almost everyone into pit lane for adjustments and new rubber. Jake?
You know, you were talking about the Belardi cars, and while they were waiting and watching that clock, it got a little bit, I'm not going to say hectic, but certainly accelerated in terms of looking at that clock for the machine of Zach Veach. They went ahead, took the rear cowling off. They made a spring change to the rear of the car, and they're going to send him back out here probably with about 10 minutes or so. Veach, of course, right now, when you look at it, 12th at the very bottom of the scoring pylon there, but they made that spring adjustment. He's going to have a set of brand new Cooper tires to go out on, so we'll see. Now is the time, I guess they've got to be thinking that if they're going to find something, find that sweet spot in that 5 machine, it's going to be now. Keep in mind, Rob, that he had, as you were talking about, an opportunity to try to get a flyer a couple of circuits ago, but got hung up in traffic just a bit. So we'll see what they can now find with that new spring and that 5 machine for Zach Veach.
You know, guys, I think we're seeing how important qualifying is going to be here at Barber. It is a tough place to pass. We know that. Turn 5 probably the best opportunity for these drivers. It looks to me like every team I've seen up here at the front end of the grid is going through all of their sticker Cooper tires right now. They're going to do everything they can to qualify well, and they're just going to run scuffs when we go racing here this afternoon.
Rob mentioned just how busy pit lane got instead of the racetrack. As of right now, all 15 of 16 drivers. Felix Rosenquist, as he makes his way down the front straightaway, weaving back and forth to put a little heat in those Cooper tires. The only car on the racetrack. Anders, this race, I mean, qualifying is important everywhere we go, but certainly here at Barber Motorsports Park, where in the past it's been proven it's tough to pass, this final 9 to 10 minutes is going to be awfully important.
It is, and I was just looking at a couple of the drivers down here in pit lane, and this is it. When you're sitting there as a driver waiting, the final 10 minutes, the time is ticking down, and you know this is it. This is my chance to qualify on the front row, and the pressure on these guys right now is every bit as much as when they start the race. So just like you said, qualifying is extremely important here.
And Mark Janes, you're going to have a chance, I know, to watch the Indy Lights race later today, but whether it's Indy Lights, whether it's qualifying, no matter where you start, turn 1 is always very interesting as these drivers tiptoe on the opening laps.
Yeah, and as the race progresses, depending on how the cautions fall or don't fall in the green flag conditions, it's a pretty interesting place. And I think we've seen recently the factor that pit exit could play in the outcome of a race, and certainly this place is as interesting as any of them because of the fact you enter into Alabama roller coaster, carousel, whatever you want to call it, perhaps one of the trickiest portions of the racetrack. So Anders, in terms of setup here, we talk about this each and every weekend just to kind of give the fans an idea. Is this a place where you're always chasing balance? But if there's one place you definitely have to be fast in order to be successful, where would that be?
Well, it's all the high-speed corners at this track. So at this track, you typically see full wing on all these Indy Lights cars, and you'll see them just stack on the wing. So the downforce setting is at the absolute maximum here. And so it's all those high-speed corners. I'm just looking at an onboard right now of Zach Veach, and you just see how much speed you're able to carry through the middle of these corners. And for qualifying, it's just all about carrying that speed and then switching gears a little bit to the race. It's all about conserving those Cooper tires.
Pretty lengthy straightaways by and large, and not just one either. There are a couple of good straightaways here where you can find some speed.
Yeah, there are, but the issue when it comes to passing is that the majority of these straightaways are followed by long sweeping corners, so there are not really any big break zones, with the exception of turn 5, of course, which is probably going to be the only spot where we're going to see much passing, and especially on the opening lap of the race, I think we're going to see a heck of a lot of action.
Some places curbing can definitely upset the balance of the race car. Some places like Long Beach, it's much more forgiving. Where does this lie in that age?
There are a few corners like turn 8 and turn 9 where you definitely don't want to touch the curbs too much, and a couple of the really fast sweepers like turn 12 and turn 13 where you're just so on edge as you go through those corners that if you touch the curb you're going to upset the car. So yeah, very tricky track.
Let's go back to pit lane and check in with Rob Howden.
Yeah, guys, most of the drivers have pulled off pit lane. They're back on track right now. Doug Zister here with the number 7 of R.C. Anderson trying to time where he's going to roll onto the track. He'll pull out of his pit box right now. They made a front ride height adjustment to the car of R.C. Anderson. He's been quick all weekend long. Let's see if he can get it done now. Less than 7 minutes remaining, and they release R.C. out into a good gap. He'll have to get things rolling here on those brand new Cooper tires.
Anders, when you watch an onboard shot like we're seeing right now on IndyCar.com or Road to Indy TV, an onboard shot of Zach Veach, what are you looking for as a driver? Can you tell whether he's comfortable with that race car?
Yeah, right now he had really good balance through turn 1, but just a little bit too much understeer through turn 2. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to do a slowdown lap now and then readjust his bars, which should help with that handling just a little bit. But my primary way of thinking when I'm seeing this is I'm jealous. Because
Sure.
this Dallara IL-15 looks amazing around here. I got to drive the old car around here, but never the new one, and it's just so fast. I mean, it's crazy.
It's gotten rave reviews, not just from Indy Lights drivers, but from IndyCar drivers that have jumped in it. And Mark James, as we get ourselves under 6 minutes to go here with a larger field with 16 cars, spacing certainly going to be an issue here in the final moments of qualifying.
Yeah, it always is, and especially when it turns into an all-skate. I mean, everybody essentially reported to pit road at once for those last-minute adjustments, and you heard Rob Houghton reference as to how Doug Zister was going to release R.C. Anderson, space is at a premium when all 16 are trying to bust off that flyer.
5 minutes to go. Zachary Clayman DeMello has jumped to the top of the charts. Boy, wouldn't that be an upset for the early season here for that young man. R.C. Anderson currently 2nd. Shelby Blackstock is 3rd. Santi Urrutia 4th. Ed Jones is 5th. And on that onboard shot, you can see Anders, Zach Veach has got his hands full, not just with that race car, but with some lap traffic in front of him.
Zach Veach needs to either make the pass right here or back right off, because he can't waste any time sitting right behind that Pelfrey car there. I don't know who that is, if that's Hargrove or Piedrahita, but boy, big moment for Zach Veach. He's got to back it off here and figure out what he's got to do with his car.
It does appear to be Scott Hargrove, because Juan Piedrahita's car spun again in turn number 3 and continued on. So for Veach and the rest of this field, certainly finding some way. Car number 4 lost his fastest lap for interference. That is the Felix Sorales machine who won earlier this season. So a lot of these drivers trying to find their way to find some speed, find some room on the racetrack. Zachary Clayman DeMello at the top of the charts. Felix Rosenquist 2nd. R.C. Anderson is 3rd. Shelby Blackstock is 4th. And Mark Janes, as you mentioned, in all skate, pit lane is empty. This is really go time. 4.5 minutes to go. This is what drivers like.
Yeah, you have an opportunity here, I think, for 2 more good ones, tops, depending on what your mindset is. I think at the 4-minute mark, but Anders, as you saw with the situation involving Zach Veach, as badly as you want one, you got to make that gap in order to give yourself the room to do so.
Yeah, you do, and then you got to make sure that you haven't overdriven your tires. So it's just this fine balance of where have they set my tire pressures? Have they set them too high? Am I going to be able to get the peak grip back now, or what's going to happen? And just looking at Zach Veach right now, it doesn't look like he's got the car underneath him right now anyway to make it happen.
Anders, Cooper Tires been such a great partner here for the Indy Lights Series, really in the 2nd year as the presenting sponsor. What have you heard about the Cooper Tires and what these drivers like about them and where they can lean on them?
I've heard a lot of really good things, and where the Cooper tire really excels is in deceleration and acceleration. So it's really, really good on the initial bite on the brakes. Now, on the G-loading side, going through the corner, it's a little bit more sensitive, so the driver needs to be very, very smooth with his inputs. But I think that teaches the driver very well, and especially when it comes to tire degradation throughout the race, it's going to be great practice for IndyCar because you're going through the same motions.
Ed Jones has gone to the top of the charts at a minute 12.673. That's a good 0.2 faster than Zachary Clayman DeMello's second fastest time. Dean Stoneman currently third, Felix Rosenqvist fourth, R.C. Enerson is fifth, Shelby Blackstock sixth, Santi Urrutia seventh, Zach Veach eighth, Scott Hargrove ninth, and Dalton Kellett 10th as they run Rob Howden with just about 2.5 minutes left in qualifying.
Yeah, Nick, we always talk about the equality and the competition in this series. And look at the top 5 right now. That's 5 different teams in the top 5. Jones with Carlin, Clayman DeMello with Juncos, Stoneman with Andretti, Rosenqvist with Ballardi, and Enerson with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. We have such a great program here this year. 5 different teams in the top 5 here late in this session.
Mark James, make no mistake about it. I know on the IndyCar side we've got Honda and Chevrolet, but in Indy Lights you've got the same car, same engine for everybody, and certainly these teams finding various ways to climb their way to the top.
And multi-car teams are certainly a benefit, and while certainly last year was a disastrous season for Andretti, and I know Shelby Blackstock Anders is the veteran returning to that race team, but huge benefit for him to be able to have teammates to bounce things off of.
Oh, it's a massive benefit. I mean, how could he know last year if he's doing something right or if the car is off when he has no one to compare to? So it was such a difficult task for him, and he only had one race last year at Long Beach with Matthew Brabham in the car alongside him to compare against someone, and I think they made some strides there. But then he was right back being a one-car team again, and that's just super tricky.
And I think a big benefit to him, and good on them to allow it, was when he jumped in a Ballardi car around the Mid-Ohio weekend, and they had an opportunity to help Shelby and that race team out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So but it's good to see the camaraderie in the paddock anyway, that teams allow that to happen, and it's good to see how competitive it is right now, and Shelby's got to be happy with this. He's 0.3 off pole right now, and he did a slightly slower last lap there, but let's see if he can back up his 1:12.9.
Final 70 seconds of qualifying to set the field for the first of 2 Legacy Indy Lights 100 races that we will see go green later this afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern. The second race, of course, on Sunday. That's at 1:20 Eastern. But first up, it's time to set the field. Ed Jones still at the top of the charts at a minute 12.673. Zachary Clayman DeMello is second. That would still be a tremendous qualifying effort from him at a minute 12.84. Dean Stoneman just a tick off at a minute 12.85. Anders, have you heard from the drivers talking about in terms of finding that sweet spot on those Cooper tires? Because I know there is a amount of heat you got to get in them, and then certainly they're going to wear off at a certain point.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a very tricky thing to hit, exactly hit the nail on the head. And but I think overall the performance of the tire is fairly linear, so it means that it ramps up in grip fairly progressively, and it sort of comes off in grip fairly progressively. So it's no massive surprise. It's just that over the course of when we're going to see a whole 1 hour race here with such massive G-loads as we see here, I think it's going to be tricky for these guys to hang on.
It is certainly made for tire conservation. It has played into a lot of these races. The checkered flag is out. No change at the top for Ed Jones. All these drivers that do get across the start-finish line before the checkered flag came out are going to get a chance to complete their lap. Ed Jones has seen the checkered flag. He's at the top of the charts. Zachary Clayman DeMello is second. Dean Stoneman has already ducked onto pit lane. He is third. Felix Rosenqvist is fourth. R.C. Enerson fifth. We'll let the rest of these drivers finish out these final laps or really kind of slow down to end the qualifying session. I see Andre Negrão making his way through turn number 5 for the final time. But Mark, Anders, we'll start with you. For Ed Jones, if this pole sticks, that's certainly a nice bounce back, because for a guy that I think everyone labeled as a championship contender, the first 3 races probably haven't gone nearly as well as he would have liked.
You're quite right, but I'm just looking at the lap he did there. 1.7 up on P2. I mean, that must have been a massive lap. So whatever he did there, he must have been holding on to his you-know-what.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be a whole lot of changes here in this final few moments. Mark James for Ed Jones. That's a big qualifying lap. We saw a year ago with Spencer Pigot, who started up front at both races, wasn't challenged, dominated the weekend. Ed Jones going to have the best seat in the house.
It's a momentum grabber, and simply put, over the history of the Indy Lights here at Barber Motorsports Park, if you start up front, especially especially P1, chances are you're going to lead a ton of laps.
So we'll run down the order before our pit reporters get a chance to talk to at least a couple of these drivers after qualifying. Ed Jones will lead the field to the green later this afternoon at 1 Eastern for the Indy Lights Legacy 100. Zachary Clayman DeMello, so impressive with that qualifying effort. He'll start to his outside in second. Row 2 will be Dean Stoneman and Felix Rosenquist. R.C. Enerson rounds out the top 5 for qualifying. Before we run down the rest of the 16 drivers, let's go pit side and hear from our pole sitter with Rob Howden.
Ed Jones, you got to be pretty happy right now. We know how tough it is to pass here at Barber, and for you to be able to get the job done in that late session run to grab that pole position by a good little margin, you must be happy. Give me your thoughts right now.
Yeah, I mean, you coming into this weekend, pole position was going to be so important. With the history of these races, pretty much all the pole sitters won the race. So yeah, it's critical. We started off not so well yesterday, but we worked really hard and got a good car for FP2 and then brought it this way. I think everyone was so close. You know, it was about whoever nailed that lap, and that time I did it. So yeah, it was great.
You guys went to the new tires yesterday afternoon. Not a lot of teams did that, but you put the new tires on. You think that helped you? Did that give you a little feel on what it was like to be on those new tires, maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it helped quite a bit because we struggle, especially in FP1, with a certain handling. And obviously then the balance is a bit different, and we needed the new tires just to get a new baseline. So yeah, it definitely helped, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the race.
Well done.
Thank you.
Ed Jones, ladies and gentlemen, P1 in qualifying for Indy Lights. Jake?
That means he'll start just in front of Zachary Clayman DeMello, who gets out of that 13 machine, qualifying second. Good run for you. How was the track different than yesterday once it got washed away? And did you guys have to adjust a little bit over the course of the session?
Yeah, over the course of the session, we had to make a few changes with the car. I had to change a few things with my driving. Obviously, the track was a bit better than yesterday. Everyone went new tires, so that played a huge factor in everything. And we happened to get the setup really well. And I think there was a little bit more out of me and a little bit more out of the car, but we were really close to the pole, so I'm happy.
Now, I like your car because it has the very cool Adidas logo on the side pod. And you tell me that actually is going to have you, by the next race, you're going to be completely decked out, right?
Yeah, I'm just expecting a suit from Adidas. I was a bit late on ordering it, and that's why. But we finally got the suit done. We should have it soon. Adidas Clothing sponsors me also, so I'm really happy about that. And it's a great partnership.
I wear a size 11.
Perfect. I'll make
sure. Just an FYI.
Perfect.
Zachary Clayman DeMello will start with that number 13 Adidas machine, and that will roll off second.
No, I know you're a big Adidas fan, Jake, so that's not surprising at all. Cool sponsorship, cool connection there with Zachary Clayman DeMello, and just a fantastic qualifying effort from him. Did have a couple of notes to pass on. An incident between Felix Rosenquist and Felix Sorales is under review. Rosenquist entered the qualifying session 4th. Sorales was 12th, and also got a note from our network general manager, Wally Levitt. All cars within 1.1 seconds. So, Anders, that's competition to say the least. I mean, so tight, so close. The margin for error is extremely thin here in Indy Lights.
It is indeed, and usually you'd see, maybe the top 3, top 4 cars back in the day with the old Indy Lights car, but now we're seeing the entire field covered within a second, and it just speaks volumes of how competitive it is right now. But yeah, to your point earlier, I mean, Zachary Clayman DeMello, what a qualifying session for him. I mean, straight out of karting, very limited amount of car racing experience, and to qualify P2 at Barber, which is one of the most technical tracks on the calendar, is I think we're going to see a lot of this young gentleman.
Appreciate you stopping in. We'll be sure to check you out, the Indy Lights races on NBC Sports Network. Certainly the coverage with Kevin Lee there and Katie Hargett. You guys do a great job. So appreciate you stopping in. Mark James, great job. Great job by our pit guys as well. We'll run down the final order in qualifying here as we go off the air. Ed Jones, again, scores the pole. Zachary Clayman DeMello will start second. Row 2 will be Dean Stoneman and Felix Rosenquist. Row 3 is R.C. Enerson and Shelby Blackstock. Row 4, Santi Urruti and Zach Veach. Row 5 will be made up of Kyle Kaiser and Scott Hargrove. Starting 11th and 12th will be Dalton Kellett and Felix Sorales. 13th and 14th is Juan Pedrojita and Neil Alberico. And the final row will be Andre Negrao and Scott Anderson. Well, for Anders Krohn and Mark James, great job by Jake Query and Rob Howden on pit lane. My name's Nick Yeoman. Stay tuned. We're going to take a bit of a break here at Barber Motorsports Park. We'll be back at noon Eastern for IndyCar practice. It's a 45-minute session. Mark James, Dave First, myself, and Jake Query will be on pit lane. So going to be a lot of fun for IndyCar action here at Barber Motorsports Park. From Birmingham, this is the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner.
500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers in just a moment. Lou Palmer is in victory lane as A.J. Foyt takes now his victory lap around the 2 and beach.
The checkered flags, twin checkers. Mike Conway has scored the win here and what has proven to be an amazing day.
This is IndyCar. This is IndyCar.
Fans will have that white flag for you right now. Coming down for Bob Swikert. There it is. Let's follow Bob Swikert around in number 6, the John Zink Special. He's just going into the south turn, and here he comes, Bill Frosch.
And here he comes, driving beautifully right into that groove. Comes right down in front of us, right now down the chute and into the southeast turn. He takes the southeast turn very nicely, riding the same groove he's ridden for the last 50 miles. Now, Jack Shapiro, you should be able to see him.
I sure can, Bill. Here comes Bobby Swikert, the hometown kid from Speedway City, driving Jack Zink's car out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Jack Zink is a good friend of mine. I know Jack Zink Jr. is really going to be a happy boy. He's going into the northeast turn. He's on his way in there, and I think in a moment, Jim Shelton will catch sight of him.
All right, Jack Shapiro, we certainly can see him. A good-looking car and a good-looking driver, and he's headed for the home stretch. This man has really driven a race. Cool, calm, and collected, and that goes for both driver and automobile. You can hear the cheers in the home stretch, and here's Sid Collins. Pick him up.
We can't see him yet, but here he comes down, I'm sure. That beautiful pink car, the checkered flag is out. Bill Vanderwater, the starter, holds it high, waves it, and there's Bob Swikert, the winner of the Good-Times Annual 500-mile race.
And there's the white flag for Graham Hill in the American Red Ball Special. Pick him up on turn number 1, Mike Ahern.
And here he is in turn number 1. Graham Hill coming around like he's been traveling this turn all afternoon, like he was on tracks. Smoothly into the short chute, turn number 2, and Howdy Bell.
And we picked him up now. We sight Graham Hill, former world driving champion. There he goes through turn 2 as he heads up the backstretch with apparently just 1 lap to go. Doug Zink. All right, thank you, Howdy. And here he comes past the halfway point on the backstretch, running all alone. 3 here, and Ron Carroll.
And I pick him up, Doug. Here he comes into turn number 3. He passes me right now out of number 3 into the short chute, and he'll be coming over to you, Jim Shelton.
Ronnie's right here. Handsome man with a beautiful car. Graham Hill in 24. Number 24, white red trim with oil smudges and dollar signs. And here's Sid Collins.
Here he comes down the main stretch, and there's the checkered flag for Graham Hill, winner of the Golden Anniversary Indianapolis 500-mile race. Car number 24, the American Red Ball Special.
The white flag is out as he comes by right now. Pick him up, Mike Ahern in turn 1.
All right, Sid, we've got him, and this looks like an instant replay of last year. The blue and gold Johnny Lightning Special, crowd on its feet as he goes into turn 2, and Howdy Bell. Howdy.
And the southeast vista here, the crowd stands, giving him a big wave now as Al Unser on the white flag lap goes through turn number 2, and sounding very nicely, moves right up the back stretch to Doug Zink. And we've got him here, Howdy, and the fans, some of whom have been laying on their blankets, paying no attention. Now we're up against the fence, waving him on. Al Unser, he's in turn number 3, and Ron Carroll.
Yes, Doug, and here he is in turn 3. Al Unser, car number 3. The dark blue, yellow streak Johnny Lightning Special moves to number 4 in Jim Shelton.
Thank you, Ron. Blue car with a big number 1, and he is number 1. And now to call the winner for the 24th consecutive time is our chief announcer, the voice of the 500, Sid Collins.
And here is Pat Vadan waving the checkered flag for Al Unser, winner of the 1971 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Al Unser on his final lap, Ron Carroll.
All right, and he's by us right now. Al Unser, 196.474 he qualified at, and he's in the number 1 position on his final lap as he heads to turn 2 and Howdy Bell.
He flashes by us. You know, only 4 other drivers have ever won this event 3 times, and if things go right for a couple of laps, Al will be the 5th one. Darrell?
He's right in Doug Zink's lap right now in turn 3.
Winner in 1970 and again in 71, putting 2 victories back-to-back, is within about a quarter of a lap of victory number 3. Jim, pick him up in turn number 4.
All right, we're here on number 4, and there he goes, a newlywed. And here to call the checkered flag, a guy that did another great job today, our chief announcer, Paul Page.
Doing a fantastic job is Al Unser. The checkered flag is waved. His hand is in the air. Al Unser, the winner of the 1978 500-mile race. Johnny Rutherford down the main straightaway. The white flag showing to him the car number 4 on the board. Now less than 2.5 miles to victory.
And what a fantastic race Johnny Rutherford has run today. The fans are on their feet cheering him on to victory. He's over to turn 2, Howdy.
As once again, in a very select group of 3-time winners, he will join as he goes up the backstretch.
Johnny Rutherford began to raise his hands off of the steering wheel, saluting the fans here on the last lap. He is about a third of a lap away from victory. Doug?
And here he drops down into turn number 3, slowing up maybe just a little bit, it seems, into the short chute. Darrell, take him home.
Great round of applause, a waving to him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they call the checkered flag for the winner of the world's greatest auto race, the voice of the 500, Paul Page.
Number 4, the Pennzoil Chaparral, his hands in the air. Johnny Rutherford wins the 1980 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
197 laps complete, working on 198. We look for them now at the head of the main straightaway, and we have them coming now. There's Al, there's Mo, here's Jerry Baker.
There are 3 cars to work their way around. Now, Unser's got by 1.
This is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Not often I'm speechless. But I am now. Our tribute to the artist formerly known as Prince, who passed away in his Minnesota home a couple of days ago. We'll turn our attention now to the Verizon IndyCar Series at beautiful Barber Motorsports Park in Leeds, Alabama, not far from Birmingham. I am Mark James. Happy to have you for this final warm-up session before we go qualifying in preparation for the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. Happy to have the sports director at WRTV Channel 6, the ABC affiliate in Indianapolis, and also a member of this radio network. Dave First in the booth with us, also joining us here this afternoon from TSO Ladder and Trackside Online, Steve Wittick. Steve, thanks for being here with us this weekend.
Thanks for inviting me up, Mark.
Well, we just we finished as the cars make their way out onto the course for their install laps, the first laps of the day for the Verizon IndyCar Series. We start with a couple of notable announcements, one involving the Verizon IndyCar Series, but let's touch upon the first. That the front row has already changed for today's Indy Lights race, a post-qualifying inspection DQ.
Zachary Clayman DeMello is in his first year with Bilardi, or with Juncos Auto Racing, was disqualified. Apparently the underwing of the car was a little bit too low, so he'll start from the back of the field, which moves Dean Stoneman to his first front row start alongside Ed Jones.
We'll look forward to that race a little bit later on today. The other announcement, long rumored that Oriol Servia would be in the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. Didn't know with who, didn't know where. That picture now, Steve, is a bit clearer.
Yeah, he's signed on with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, which will reunite him with former teammate James Hinchcliffe, who he raced with in 2011 at Newman Haas. Pastor Will Mariotti is involved with that deal as well. It's kind of interesting. This is obviously Servia's 4th different team in 4 races. It's kind of odd. I think it's his 14th team he's actually going to start a race for if he gets the start. I think the 16th he's appeared with in IndyCar.
Steve Wittick joins us for this session, and Dave First, no question, the focus is on doing well here this weekend with the setup of the race car, but I think as you make your way through the paddock, the Honda hospitality area where you meet up with members of the media that they host each and every weekend, there's no question that in the back of everyone's mind, they realize just how very close we are to what promises to be a magnificent month of May.
Well, no doubt about it. I just want to know if you
practiced rolling your R's now that Oriol Servia is back for the 100th running of the Indy 500. Nothing gets better than interviewing Oriol Servia. He rolls those R's. You just feel, I don't know, a little romantic about it, whatever. But good to see Oriol, and looks like maybe Steph Wilson will have that ride with KBSH Racing announced perhaps on Tuesday. So things certainly come together for the 100th running of the Indy 500. But right now, you talk about Honda. Honda's a good story yesterday. They had, 4 of the top 5 yesterday, with Takuma Sato leading the way. Jack Hawksworth was up there. James Hinchcliffe as well. And how about Graham Rahal? He was 5th quick. So the question now is, now that the sun's up, here it is, qualifying later this afternoon, Saturday, the race Sunday. What does Honda have in store now for the real meat of the weekend?
Yeah, I don't want to say yesterday was a throwaway session, the second one anyway. It was a promoter's test day technically, but certainly I don't think, because of the amount of rain that we received prior to the start of that session, I really don't know how much could have been gleaned by those teams. Perhaps yesterday morning, Dave, gave them a better baseline, and certainly this one I think will serve as a pretty good indication of how they will do when they go qualifying later this afternoon.
It's a much shorter session, only 45 minutes here this morning or this afternoon if you're in the Eastern time zone, and already Tony Kanaan up over a minute 8 and change right now for TK P1, with only about half the field or so completing their second lap here in this practice session.
Sato a 67.2157 in the session, combined results of the session, and as we mentioned, Hawksworth, Hinch, the top 3, then Bourdais, Power, Graham Rahal, Newgarden, Simon Pagenaud, Juan Montoya, and Scott Dixon, your top 10. We see the number 8 machine with an issue.
Max Chilton, yeah.
Get a look at the replay there. Max Chilton rolls off in turn number 5, a very tricky portion of the race course. And one thing's for sure, Dave, is it looks like a red flag's going to be displayed so they can retrieve him and get him back underway. That is indeed the case. This much more forgiving Barber Motorsports Park as compared to the tight confines of the tire barriers and the concrete walls at Long Beach.
A lot more runoff area here in this 2.3 mile layout at beautiful Barber Motorsports Park. Hard to believe this is now the 7th time that the Verizon IndyCar Series has been here. It doesn't seem that long ago, does it?
No, it doesn't. And, there were skeptics when it was first announced because of, again, what the facility was built for, things on 2 wheels primarily. Yep. But I think, honestly, over the course of time, we have seen, especially with this chassis engine combination, we have seen the quality and the competitiveness of this race improve each and every year. And let's face it, from the top to the bottom here at Barber Motorsports Park, Southern hospitality, it is front and center, and they make their guests feel welcome, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here to not only to promote the Verizon IndyCar Series, but also Barber Motorsports Park. Red flag condition for Max Chilton. Hamato safety crew is on the scene getting him back underway. We'll have more after this. For the Firestone broadcast booth, this is the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber. Which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires. We make champions. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
If you're a fan of the Mazda Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires and the Verizon IndyCar Series, you need to have a subscription to TrackSideOnline.com. You'll get previews of upcoming events, session roundups, qualifying reports, and race recaps, along with all of the behind-the-scenes stories, and all of this delivered to your inbox throughout each and every race weekend. Since 1996, TrackSideOnline.com has been the source for all the news about IndyCar. And now you can find out about the up-and-coming drivers in the Mazda Road to Indy. For just $22 a year, you'll be able to follow your favorite drivers during every race weekend right from your computer. Go to TrackSideOnline.com today to subscribe. And the guy that's keeping you up to date as we go back to green on what's going on with the Mazda Road to Indy and the Ladder Series is joining us for this session. Steve Wittick also covers Indy cars and basically anything with motors and a wheel that runs worldwide. And Steve, How was the latter portion of TSO being received by your fans? Been getting a lot of interest from it?
Yeah, it's actually starting to grow. We sort of broke things off last year. We didn't have a separate site, but we upped our Road to Indy coverage last year, and this year we decided to go with its own site, so it's something we can put focus on. And we've actually grown quite a bit, and we're really happy with how it's been received. And it's a great place for fans that want to know about who's going to be running in the IndyCar series in the next 5-10 years, to learn about the backgrounds of these drivers that are coming up from America and from over in Europe and other parts of the world.
Now the subscription will give you access to both services?
It will give you access to both services, yes, sir.
Now tell us about, let's say for instance Trackside Online, or either one, TSO Ladder or Trackside Online. That subscription, what can you see start to happen for you on a race weekend once you subscribe?
So one thing we always do is you have access to as much or as little information as you want. You can have every press release sent to you, or you can have no press releases. But on a race weekend, so on a weekend like this, there's two of us here covering it. Joe Berkmeyer is covering IndyCar Series primarily this weekend, and I'm here covering the ladder. So what you'll get on each day is 5, 6, 7 updates throughout the day. We'll recap a session, but we'll also share what we've learned in the paddock. Some of the stuff will be breaking news, some of it won't. Some of it will be behind the scenes stories about, okay, how'd this deal come together? And then if you're also interested, hey, we share what we had for dinner last night as well.
Well, I know in terms of facts and information, I would suggest you follow Steve, because I'm firmly convinced Joe makes most of the stuff he writes up.
Well, I will say nothing. I know nothing. But no, Joe
He's going to be mad
awesome
at me because we're fellow Reds fans, and we know we're out of contention for the pennant already. But no, I get Joe, you, Patrick, Stefan. I mean, you guys, passionate fans, but very knowledgeable folks, and we're thrilled with the partnership and the relationship that we've developed. Let's go to pit road and Nick Yo.
Well, as you guys talked about, the big announcement about an hour ago involves this man, Sam Schmidt, who's going to field a third car for Oriol Servia. Sam, kind of talk us through how this came together and maybe the excitement level that I'm sure everyone has to put a veteran like Oriol Servia in a car for the Indy 500.
Yeah, I think we were kind of the last team to answer the call of 33 or 34. But we really wanted to have a quality effort this year. We've been preparing the chassis for Indy since last September, and wanted to have a really quality professional driver in there. And so had a number of combinations from Ryan Briscoe, and then he couldn't do it because 24 hours and Gabby and Gabble, the guys were trying to get the money together, put all the pieces together, and finally just came together in the last probably 48 hours to get it done and go down the road. And obviously Oriole's got a fantastic record there.
In a time where obviously budgets are so tight and everyone has to count every dollar in motorsports, how important is it and how confident are you to put a guy like Oriol Servia, who you know throughout the 2-week process is going to take care of the car because his track record is just so flawless?
Yeah, I mean, technically this year we're challenged with the introduction of the dome skid, a lot of variables, and really don't have time to mess around. And so that's a huge benefit. I think he's got 5 top 11s there 7 times, and just a real solid guy. So we're looking forward to it.
Final thing I want to ask you, obviously the 7 of Michaela Ocean, they've got their own dedicated crew, the same for the car for James Hinchcliffe. That 77 car driven by Oriol Servia, is that going to include a lot of guys from the Indy Lights program that crew that car?
Yeah, that's what's nice about our program. We can run it without any distraction. It'll be, one roof, one team, 3 cars, just like we ran back with Dan Weldon back in 2011, So we're hoping to have the similar type of success, but it'll be all Indy Lights guys. I think we're only bringing in 2 additional guys, so it's a pretty smooth thing. And again, we've been preparing for 3 cars since October, so it's not a surprise.
It's great news. Awesome. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, that is Sam Schmidt, 4 cars in Indy Lights. And now we're going to see 3 mark for the Indianapolis 500. Of course, Michaela Ocean, James Hinchcliffe, and the announcement today of Oriol Servia going to be in that 77 car. Always good to have Oriol back at the racetrack, and he's going to be a guy that you just know going to take care of that car, and if he's there at the end, may factor in.
10 minutes into this session, Dixon, Sato, Newgarden, Bourdais power the top 5, and Dave, as if Oriol Servia didn't have enough fans, think about his last couple of rides, filling in for the late Justin Wilson at Sonoma, and then having to jump into the race car at the very last minute at St. Petersburg, subbing for the injured Will Power. Not too many guys with helmet in hand could handle circumstances it seemingly as flawlessly as Oriol Servia did in those two instances.
Well, I remember how honored he was that Justin Wilson's family tabbed Oriol to drive out there in that season finale last year at Sonoma. And he would quite frankly say, I'm not sure if I'm physically prepared to drive on a road course like Sonoma, but he did it just the same, did a really nice job, and super sub, if you will, when a guy like Will Power can't drive in the season opening race at St. Pete. Who are you going to call? Well, call Oriol Servia, who hopped in. Not only did he had his helmet, that was shipped out to him. He also hopped in an old Montoya fire suit as well, and made it all. If you're going to sub for someone, why not sub for a former champion and a guy that's driving for Team Penske? So I'm sure he enjoyed that ride in the season opening race at St. Pete as well.
You know, Dave, Sebastian Bourdais has had a pretty good weekend here, aligning himself as a contender for a race win. A lot of things can happen during knockout qualifying of the Firestone Fast Six, but Takuma Sato, Sebastian Bourdais, two guys who I think have to be awfully pleased with how swimmingly things have gone here at Barber this weekend.
And take a look who's second quick all of a sudden. Scott Dixon now is P2 at 1:07, 67 seconds, .3925. Jack Hawksworth still, I tell you what, the Hondas, AJ Foyt Racing, they may have something this weekend. Hawksworth has been quick all weekend, and so far that hasn't changed here on this Saturday at 67.4, so just a couple of tenths behind Dixon. So we'll see what Honda. What do you think, Steve? Does this surprise you at all to see the Hondas performing this well so far?
It doesn't surprise me as much as it might. I know a lot of the Honda teams came down here and had a private test, and I know that the Andretti guys were happy with what they found, and I also know what that some of the other teams like Schmidt-Peterson found something on the Honda side, so it's not as surprising, and they've been more competitive on the road and street courses.
Yeah.
Bourdais, Dixon, Hawksworth, Newgarden, Sato, the top five. Let's welcome in the other member of our broadcast crew for this session, Jay Query.
Thank you, Mark. Just sitting here and monitoring Max Chilton in his pit stall. Just talking with Tom Wirtz, and he said that when Chilton got loose out, he simply looped it around. Did not make any contact. They went ahead and brought in that number 8 Gallagher machine. Of course, that rookie Max Chilton running for Chip Ganassi. They gave it to once-over. Did not see any sort of an issue and just said it was one of those where the car just got away. So didn't even necessarily tighten it up or make any wing adjustment. Max Chilton's been pretty impressive, Mark, I think we'd have to say here thus far, albeit early in his rookie campaign. This is a guy with a lot of experience, needless to say, but I think probably where he was most impressive to me was in Phoenix. I mean, this is a guy that even though he ran lights a year ago, doesn't have extensive oval time, but was very comfortable seemingly on the oval in Phoenix. Then, of course, the road and street courses, something in which he's a little more comfortable. But nothing to be alarmed about in terms of him getting loose here in this early session. Just one of those where the car got away. No harm, no foul. That number 8 machine is back out here at Barber Motorsports Park.
Dave, the post-mortem on that performance by Max Chilton of Phoenix led to a little back and forth between he and Graham Rahal. Graham didn't care too much for some of the characterizations that Max Chilton shared of what it's like to race on an oval here at the Verizon IndyCar Series.
Well, he hasn't had a lot of experience on ovals. He's quickly going to get that certainly next month when they hit the oval at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Chilton, by the way, you might remember last year picked up a podium in the Indy Lights race, or the second race, I believe, the second race of the weekend last year for the Indy Lights series. So he's a young man, I think, feels pretty comfortable, certainly at this European-style road course.
Steve, your thoughts and impressions as to the aftermath of Long Beach, the controversy between Simon Pagenaud and Scott Dixon, moreover the penalty that was issued by IndyCar as he exited the pits, and should say the warning that was issued. While certainly that debate can go on, I think what's most important for me personally is the fact that it appears as though that they have taken all the gray area out of that ruling now with the changes that they have been made for this starting this weekend. Talk about those changes and your impressions of that aftermath.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with how quick they moved on making a change to the how the pit out and the blend line work. There will now be an electronic line that the transponder will trip if
a sensor, if you will, down there, right?
Yeah.
At
Like
pit out.
it'll at pit out there'll be a electronic line put in that will pick up when the transponder crosses it, which will then give race control an idea. Okay, who is actually crossing over? Because what happened at Long Beach was that yes, Pagenaud probably did break the rules, but as we go back and look,
so did everyone else.
So how do you penalize one guy and not the rest?
Although you would argue, and as the Chip Ganassi guys have, that was for position. Whereas a lot of other times when guys have done that, it hasn't been for position, perhaps not that much. I mean, you go back to the corner that Max Chilton kept cutting throughout the corner. Did it really make up any position? No, it didn't make up
any position. And that's kind of the way it's worded in the rule book, is you have to improve your position.
Right.
And did Pagenaud? Yes, maybe not. It's always hard to tell. And I was pretty upset when it first happened. I was a little curious as to, okay, we'd been told that there weren't going to be as many warnings this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, here's the first chance they have to throw the hammer down, per se, and there's a warning. But looking back on it, they didn't have much choice in the matter. When Dixon, before that, had crossed the line, Sato had crossed the line.
Speaking of Sato, he crossed the line. He's doing a little gardening, a little landscaping here. We've seen a couple of drivers do that, in fact. We are 16 minutes into this session, 25 to go. Jake, it's just 45 minutes.
You know, Mark, you might have pointed this out, but taking a look at it, Bryce Stenninger points this out on Twitter. Really good point. Look right now at the top 6 speeds that have been posted here and the teams and engines. That versatility is something really pretty interesting of note. Right now, number 1, of course, Sebastian Bourdais and that KBSH racing machine. Then behind that, you've got Scott Dixon. Behind Scott Dixon, Jack Hawksworth. Then Joseph Newgarden. Following Newgarden, Ryan Hunter-Reay. Then Sato, which would be Hawksworth's teammate. And then the fastest Penske so far in the form of Helio Castroneves. So equal mix, Nick, of Honda and Chevrolet and 5 different teams right now, 1 through 5 on the speed chart.
Yeah, so far from a competitive standpoint, so far so good. We'll see if that changes in qualifying. How about an update on a couple of those drivers that were involved in that controversy a week ago in Long Beach in terms of this practice? Watch some work being done at the front of the car for Scott Dixon as they made a damper adjustment. As for Simon Pagenaud, most of the work being done towards the rear of the car, Mark, as they change out springs on that number 22 PPG car. A very similar livery that he won a week ago at Long Beach. So some adjustments being done down here. As for the driver that's got the first pit box, Helio Castroneves, he's just been sitting on pit lane. Not a whole lot of adjustments done to that car, as some of these Chevrolets that we expect to be towards the top of the speed charts continue to adjust on these race cars to get them ready for qualifying later this afternoon.
Bourdais, Dixon, Hawksworth, Newgarden, and Munoz the top 5. Hunter-Reay, Sato, Castroneves, Kanaan, and Will Power. Then Pagenaud, Hinchcliffe, Alosian, Rossi, Daly, Rahal, Montoya, Kimball, Chilton, Luca Filippi, 20th quick. Marco Andretti is 21st quick. Dave first, don't think there's any question. Michael Andretti himself, from him all the way down to the last crew member, had to be scratching their head, a little aggravated, a little frustrated. They flat missed it team-wide at Long Beach last weekend.
And so far, pretty slow here this afternoon. In fact, we talked to Marco yesterday in the second practice session. He said, yeah, we're definitely chasing it. Loves coming to the Barber Motorsports Park. But so far, again, struggling for the second straight weekend. Steve, what strikes your fancy here? What storyline are you following?
Yeah, the whole Andretti story is actually pretty interesting. There's a couple guys up near the top. Munoz actually just went P1, and then Hunter-Reay 6th, and then you've got Rossi and Andretti down near the bottom. And Rossi had an interesting observation or statement yesterday that that was absolutely the worst Friday he'd ever had at a racetrack, and if they weren't going to improve things, he was going to go home, and he didn't want to go home. So that kind of tells you where that team sits right now. It's interesting because they talked about how good the chemistry had been to start the season, but it seems to have, I don't know what has happened there.
Well, it's interesting that Munoz P1 Marco Andretti last, P21.
They could be very well trying different things, and it also might be that Munoz is the first one out on new tires.
Sure.
Kind of looking down pit lane, and Power's just about to head out at P11, but he's also got a fresh set of sticker tires, so expect to see the number 12 move up.
And Steve, as you well know, chemistry doesn't pertain to just camaraderie among drivers. I think it's clear that over the past couple of years, we hear names now in pit boxes as engineers and race strategists that not that long ago were working for Michael Andretti, and now they're working for other race teams. And so that chemistry must be built as well, and that just doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. It's been interesting to watch that team sort of develop, and with the change at the top, with Rob Edwards coming over, you're going to expect some of that. He's going to want some of the people that he knows and trusts and get along with. Yeah. So it's going to take a little bit of time for that to happen. But yeah, they've lost some pretty good engineers, including one that they lost last year that was working with Justin Wilson, Blair Perschbacher, who's now working with Michaela Loshin.
I'll take it a few steps, a few years before that as well. George Kloach, who for years was with Andretti Autosport. Now he's with Jack Hawksworth. They've been in the top 5 all weekend long.
Well, Kyle Moyer essentially ran the entire operation just below Michael Andretti.
Yeah.
And now he finds himself with Simon Pagenaud at Penske.
And I know, talking to both those drivers, Pagenaud and Hawksworth, they both really enjoy working with those guys. So it's chemistry. It's definitely proof that this is a team sport. It's the focus is on the drivers, but it's definitely everybody has to be part, and all the cogs and everything has to be oiled well to work.
Everybody's going to be pulling in the same direction.
Exactly.
Right?
Dave, how about the mayor of Hinchtown? All of a sudden, he goes to P1.
Another Honda. Carlos Munoz, James Hinchcliffe. Hinch now approaching that 66-second lap. He's at a 67.1, and now Scott Dixon just ripped off a big one. He's now P1, and look out for the Iceman. Here we go. Now things are getting interesting.
20 minutes remaining in this session. Dixon, Hinchcliffe, Munoz, Bourdais, Alosian, your top 5. Hawksworth, Newgarden, Hunter Ray, Sato, Castroneves. Kanaan, Power, Pagenaud, Andretti, Rossi, the top 15. Then Connor Daly, Graham Rahal, Juan Montoya, Charlie Kimball, Max Chilton, and Luca Filippi. Steve, your thoughts and impressions? We mentioned Alex Rossi and some of the frustration that he has felt this weekend. But other than that, I think this is, while not huge in numbers, which is probably a good thing from a continuity standpoint, nonetheless, a very impressive crop of rookies with some pretty impressive resumes dotting that Verizon IndyCar Series lineup this year.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that, a couple of the guys do have some Indy Lights background. Connor Daly, obviously, and Max Chilton last year ran in Indy Lights. And Rossi's come from a European background, but so did Connor and Max. And it's going to take them a little while to get used to the American-style racing. Max last year was amazed at how open the paddock was, and he grew to really enjoy it. He opened up, and he's actually a really fun guy to get to know.
If you talk to him now versus you talked to him last year, it's night and day, the personality.
Completely different person now.
And I would say the same for Rossi. The first thing, I remember talking to him in St. Pete. I said, what do you think so far? He goes, I can't believe how open and friendly everyone is.
First person I ever heard tell that story, I think, was Rubens Barrichello, the year that he spent. He went to the test in Sebring, and he went to a restaurant to have dinner, and I think he was under the impression that TK was going to be the only one there. And he walked into the restaurant, and lo and behold, there were drivers from several different teams there. And he said, that is absolutely nothing like what I experienced in Formula One. Let's go to pit road, Nick Yeoman.
Well, let's catch up with Kevin Kalkova. And I assume you've got to be a pretty happy owner. Sebastian Bourdais, first practice, second practice, and even today sitting fifth quick. This 11 car appears to be pretty quick. Happy all in all?
He tested well here a little while ago, and we had some pretty good setups then. And he's just delivering on small improvements now, so it's all pretty thorough.
What has he said about this racetrack? Because when I think about this place and how racy, where drivers get to get up on the wheel and really pitch the car around the racetrack, this seems like a track that really fits your driver.
It's his style. Sebastian's always really great on road courses like this, and it's just part of his whole sort of psyche. He just loves it. Big smile.
Good luck the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin Calcoman. He and Jimmy Vassar, the co-owners of that number 11 car for KVSH Racing. And certainly, Mark, it's been a good weekend so far for Sebastian Bourdais, as I mentioned. Found himself really in the top 5 for a majority of this weekend. So he may be one of those factors, one of those guys you want to keep an eye out to knock off the Penske and Ganassi dominance here so far to start 2016.
We will have flag-to-flag coverage of the Indy Lights race coming up at the top of the hour. Jake Query will set up shop at that fabulous museum here at Barber Motorsports Park. Before we turn Jake loose to head that way, because he'll be part of the call of that race this afternoon from the museum. Jake, you've got one more observation.
Yeah, I wanted to share something that I learned yesterday, Mark, and I will admit to this fact. Every once in a while, you see things always taking place on a pit road, and when you're around racing a lot, you think in the back of your mind, I think I'm supposed to know exactly what that guy's doing, and I don't even want to ask because it probably is so incredibly elementary. Then you find out about it and you think that's pretty cool, and you realize that maybe more people had the same question in their mind. What I'm talking about is this. Oftentimes you will see, folks, if you are at a racetrack, if you're walking through a pit road, you'll see some of the team members that will take a tire aside, and they actually take essentially a blue torch, if you will, and they light a small fire on the tire and then use a flat, almost spatula-like device to smoothen the tire back out. Typically 4 stripes across the width of the tire. So yesterday I saw this for the umpteenth millionth time and thought, I want to know exactly what the guy's doing, and asked him. It's really pretty simple, Mark. What happens is this: when these tires come back, once they've run through a practice or a qualifying session, obviously typically in a practice session, they want to gauge exactly where the tire is taking the most stress. So when they bring the tire back in, you have what's called marbles. Essentially, you have already worn off or deteriorated rubber that has accumulated over the course of the tire. By taking that blowtorch and melting it down and then swiping down back to the original core clean area of the tire, they're then able to take over the course and looking at the tire in the entire width, which area it is that took the most scrape, if you will, to get back down to the cleanest area. That then tells them where they're getting the largest amount of accumulation on the tire itself. Is it on the outside of the tire? Is it the middle of the tire? Is it in the inside of the tire? That just allows them to know what areas could be creating an issue for the driver or creating friction for him tire-wise over the course of a session.
15 minutes to go in this session before we go qualifying a little bit later on this afternoon. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, we'll have flag-to-flag coverage of the Indy Lights race. Nick Yeoman will have the call for you, along with Davey Hamilton. Jake will be at the museum. Michael Young will be high above us here, calling the middle portion of the racetrack. We'll have Dave First and Rob Houghton on pit road. And then we will go qualifying at 2:55 Central this afternoon, 3:55 Eastern. From the Firestone broadcast booth, this is the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
The best drivers on earth aren't going to push the limits of man and machine riding on just any old piece of rubber, which is why Firestone is the tire of the Verizon IndyCar Series. So when it's time to celebrate the 100th running of the Indy 500, no one knows more about celebrating than the tire that has more Indy wins than anyone else. Because at Firestone, we don't just make tires, we make champions. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Well, power has gone to P1 in this session. 67, 0198, Dixon, Hinch, Munoz, Bourdais, the top 5, Alosian, Newgarden, Rahal, Hawksworth, and Pagano. Steve Wittig joins us from TSO Ladder, Trackside Online. And Steve, let's face it, Pagano, Dixon, gotten off to outstanding starts, been very, very consistent. And while certainly that consistency keeps you in contention, as we found last year, by season's end, the old adage, you don't worry too much about points, you just win races and the points take care of themselves.
Yeah, it is interesting to see last year, Juan Pablo Montoya's got off to a fantastic start, won a number of races, including the Indianapolis 500. But after that, he went points racing. It became pretty obvious that if he had a 5th, he'd take the 5th. If he had an 8th, he'd take the 8th. And when it comes down to the end of the year, he's tied with points with Scott Dixon. And maybe that extra position he could have gained by being a little more aggressive at Barber or wherever it was could have ended up helping him win the championship. So I understand the points racing mentality, but there's a point where you've got to go, okay, I need to gain as many positions as I can, because every year this championship comes down to the last race.
Steve, oddly enough, to your point, there is a guy who's made a career off of that. For some reason, it's worked out well for him, and that's the guy that won the championship, Scott Dixon. I mean, how many times have we seen the guy have a fifth-place car, and he ran a fifth-place car, and then at the end of the season, he's right there in contention. So for some guys, that plan is effective. Well, the few I've ever seen is Dixon, but clearly, to your point, I think you were spot on about Montoya, especially the second half of the season.
He's a much better driver when he's aggressive. That's painfully obvious. It was obvious in Formula One. It was obvious when he was NASCAR. It was obvious in his first run at IndyCar. And, you know, I don't know if he'd admit it, but I think he got a little conservative later in the season, and it ended up costing him the championship.
Under 12 minutes to go in this session. Back to pit road, Nick Yeoman.
Under 12 to go, and let's talk about driver of car number 12. As you mentioned, Will Power has gone to the top of the charts. We talk about wins and how they accumulate and work your way to winning a championship. Hard to believe, guys. We're closing in on the 1 year mark since Will Power's last win. That was the Grand Prix of Indianapolis last year in 2015. So it has been very close to a full calendar year. And that's something we're not used to seeing, because looking back at about the past 5 or 6 years, we know how Will Power has racked up the wins. 5 in 2010, 6 in 2011, and then 3 wins each in 2012, 13, and 14. That one win a year ago, a little surprising that it only happened once for him last year. But we know that he knows how to get around this Barber Motorsports Park. He won here in 2012, won here in 2011. So, Mark, that driver of number 12, Will Power, likes where he's at right now at the top of the charts, but it has been a long time since we have seen Will in victory lane, and certainly going to be a factor in qualifying later today.
157 starts, 25 wins. He has 102 top 10 finishes in 157 starts, and he this year could very easily go over the 3,000 mark in terms of laps led. And Dave, I don't think you go back to a year ago since Will Power's won a race. I'm not sure that it's anything that Will Power has done. He hasn't lost anything in his step, and that team hasn't lost its stride. I think it's more of an indication of just how daggone competitive this series is.
Well, I think if you'd ask Will Power, he's not all that concerned about it either. Especially when you walk in the office every day and you see the name Team Penske right there. And you're like, wait, you know what? I think I'll be okay. Although there's certainly that thought where, you know, if you can outdrive your own teammates at Team Penske, you're going to, whatever it happens, you're going to be okay. And I think, you know, Simon Pagenaud thought that last year, obviously the win at Long Beach last week, finally getting over the hump. But still, if you're with Team Penske, you know you're going to be in the top 5, top 6 every weekend.
Steve, I think we've reached the point where, quite frankly, if you look at 1 through 21, and as they roll off the grid for tomorrow's race, for the first time in recent memory, no disrespect to anyone who has ever climbed in a race car and plied their trade doing this. Got to have the utmost respect for them. But that being said, first time in my recent memory that if any one of these 21 cars get to victory lane tomorrow, it would not be a shock.
No, it really wouldn't, Mark. It's become a very, very deep field, and it's become higher quality all the way through the field. It's not just, a couple years ago it was Power and Dixon, and then, there was a couple drivers in the next tier.
Elio, Dario.
Yeah. And then a couple in the next tier, and then you had maybe, the bottom third of the field. You could count out most weekends, but that's not the case anymore. You've got the top portion of the field has definitely grown with Pagenaud becoming much quicker and Montoya asserting himself, and I think those guys have actually helped Helio Castroneves up his game again this year and in the past 2 years, because you have to compete with those guys.
Nick Yeoman.
Well, and to add on to this, I think when you evaluate a class of a year in IndyCar, I think you have to start at the bottom and you look at the rookies and just look at the experience in the rookie class this year with Max Chilton and Alexander Rossi with Formula One experience. Connor Daly has made a couple Indianapolis 500 starts. We saw Spencer Pigot open the season and look very strong in racing at St. Petersburg for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing. So you're right, top to bottom, there is no weak link. There is no driver that that you'll look at and say, well, he might bring out a caution, and I think that's what generated such maybe a bit of a parade at Long Beach, because there just wasn't a driver out there that slipped up and made a mistake. And Mark, at a tight street course like Long Beach, those walls usually jump out and grab a couple drivers, and last week we didn't see anybody make a mistake, and I think it's just a testament to the talent level of these 21 drivers that are here this weekend again at Barber Motorsports Park.
Now 7.5 left in this session. Power, Dixon, Hinch, Munoz, Pagano, the top 5. Bourdais, Montoya, Aloshin, Joseph Newgarden, and Graham Rahal, the top 10. Hawksworth, Sato, Chilton, Castroneves, Hunter Ray, Kanaan, Kimball, Andretti, Rossi, Daly, and Filippi. We talked about this earlier, Steve, with some of the other folks that maybe don't have the luxury of being in Central Indiana the way me, you, Dave, and some of the others with this network do. But in preparation for the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500, from your perspective, not only as a resident Hoosier and also, you know, a motorsports journalist covering this series, how about the job that Doug Bowles and everyone has done connected with the Indianapolis 500 in preparation for the 100th?
It's amazing around town. It's just, it feels like it did maybe 20 years ago. There's more hype, there's more activation from partners, which is very important. You know, you go into a liquor store and there's now a Graham Rahal banner. You see what's going up on the JW Marriott. You go into your local Kroger and there's IMS logo, 100th running logo on your Coke cans. So that's the type of thing that ends up growing the sport, and it needs to obviously become a national thing.
Yeah,
but I think starting in Indy, growing from that is very important for the series.
I would hope that there's a buzz amongst the IndyCar fans and race fans in general. Obviously, you're going to see it in Central Indiana and the state of Indiana, but outside of that, the big scope of everything, there's a tremendous buzz that's certainly growing. Here's the thing. You're going to be hard-pressed to find a hotel room in Indianapolis right now, come Memorial Day weekend.
Or outside, 50 miles outside of
Exactly. And a reserve ticket, if you're thinking about getting a reserve ticket for the Indy 500, good luck. You're going to have to go to a scalper to get that.
And I've been kind of looking for, my wife wants to go with a couple of her friends this year, and I've been watching online at the tickets, and I'm telling you right now, the prices of good seats are triple, quadruple what they were in the past few years.
And that's very reminiscent of what we saw 20 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know now camping is completely sold out. I've seen parking passes on sale for, triple.
On eBay?
For what? They're normally $40. You're going to pay $200 for a parking pass.
Steve, I can cut you a deal on a nice parking spot not far from this.
That is true. I remember. I will come up.
What's the bike ride from that parking lot?
It's 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Okay. I rolled out of my driveway on my bicycle, and at 10 minutes later, I was in a chair on the 9th floor of the pagoda. That took care of the parking problem. The 14 car of Takuma Sato, for the second time, has had issues in turn 5. This time he gets off into the gravel trap, and that's going to bring out a red flag and may very well bring an end to this session with just about 4.5 minutes to go. I know they're close, as we see Tom Hansing in the flag stand displaying that red flag, and I'm sure they'll get him back underway, and maybe you can get another lap or two. He just drove it in there a little too deep, a lot of brake smoke, and he lost grip on the rear end of the race car and came to a stop. Dave, you had a chance to get that perspective with Tom Hansing. I talked to him this morning, the guy in the flag stand for the Verizon IndyCar Series. He got a big kick out of you being up there with him yesterday.
And I got a big kick out of being up there. I mean, I grew up watching USAC dirt track events in the Midwest, and I always thought as a young boy, I looked up at the flag stand, but that's got to be one of the coolest jobs in racing, and I still think that, by the way. So to be up there at a flag stand was a really cool perspective, and just think these guys are flying underneath him, not out in front, they're underneath it. It's a pretty cool experience.
Well, Nick Yeoman, you can share with folks that Tom has a little experience with those cars flying a little too closely to him in his capacity as a USAC flagman.
Yeah, in fact, he had a very scary moment a couple years ago up in Fort Wayne where there was a midget race indoors that got into the fence and about jolted him out of that flag stand, and thankfully he was okay. But I got that same experience, though, that Dave had, although I got to do it at Kokomo Speedway in Indiana.
Nice.
And had a little dirt flung up on me. Took my little brother up there. Needless to say, I don't think he was thrilled about it, but yeah, it's one of the coolest vantage points anywhere you go, any racetrack, to have those drivers just flying underneath you, whether it be on asphalt or dirt, IndyCar or a sprint and midget. It is a very cool vantage point, and I think there's a lot of people jealous of guys like Tom Hansing that get such a cool view, Mark.
Well, it's a perspective that we enjoy giving the fans, Dave.
You know who was also jealous about the fact we were interviewing Tom Hansing on the radio broadcast yesterday, and that was Paul Blevin, who reached out to me on social media and said, oh, yeah, I'm not there, and you go interview Tom Hansing. Oh, I see how it works.
Well, we like guys that can put two coherent sentences together, which is why we chose Tom Hansing over Paul Blevins. A couple of minutes left in this session. They're still trying to retrieve the 14 machine. They about have him clear of the gravel trap. We'll get him back underway shortly. So, Steve, as we mentioned at the top of the hour, we go racing in the Indy Lights series presented by Cooper Tire. Give us a little preview. What are we looking for from the Indy Lights drivers here this afternoon? Typically in the past, you start up front, you lead the most laps and win the race.
Typically, but with 16 cars, it might be a little bit different this year. This car is also showing that with a little bit better brakes, going into turn 5, there is a possibility to make a pass there. And you've also got some quick drivers starting a little farther back. Points leader Kyle Kaiser, I believe, now rolls off 8th after the penalty to Clement DeMello. Felix Sorales, who's second in points, rolls off near the back. So you're going to have some guys that they're going to want to try and get their way forward. And with guys like Felix Rosenquist and Dean Stoneman, very experienced European drivers, passing isn't going to be happy. And actually, speaking of Dean Stoneman, let's go down to Nick, who's chatting with him.
I appreciate that, Steve. Dean Stoneman, you're going to be on the front row. Let's preview this Indy Lights race that we're about to see. How wild do you expect it to be getting into turn 1 there when they drop the green flag?
Yeah, hopefully I'm in the lead by turn 1, but you know it's not such a long drag down to turn 1, so it's going to be quite difficult. But on a Saturday, it's a long race. We got 35 laps, so the tyre's going to take quite a big hammering throughout the race. But you never know what's going to happen throughout the race.
What's your impressions of Barber Motorsports Park?
It's a great facility. It's one of the best facilities I've been to in the world. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing. If you see the scenery, the track is amazing, up and down. There's crest, there's higher speed, low speed, and it's just really good.
Appreciate it. Good luck today.
Thank you.
That is Dean Stoneman. He's going to be one of those drivers, Mark, that's going to compete in the Legacy Indy Lights 100 coming up here in just about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a nice get. A lot of those guys making their way out onto pit road and watching these Verizon Indy cars go through the final paces. And Takuma Sato is back underway now, trying to get his way back to pit road, and the yellow flag is in the air, and it looks as though the day we might get an opportunity for guys to get out and get maybe 1 or 2 quick laps in before the checkers flies.
The hard work for the Homatra safety crew not done, because once they got Takuma Sato back up and running, he did spread some of that pea gravel out on the race course down there at Charlotte's Web in turn 5, so those guys are still sweeping that up right now, and looks like they've completed that work. Everyone's back in the truck. They're on their way. So, yeah, we should see maybe 2 minutes or so green flag action before this practice session wraps up.
Steve, we're going to make a hasty exit once we get the checkered flag here. And with just a couple of minutes left in the show, want you to give you the opportunity to remind people exactly where they can find you and how they can log on, and most importantly, how they can become subscribers to all the great stuff you guys produce throughout the week and certainly on the race weekend.
Well, you can find us at tracksideonline.com, and if you click the subscribe button on the top left-hand corner, you can make a quick $22 payment, and you'll get as many emails as you can read. If you want to follow us, Road to Indy, it's tsoladder.com, and Trackside Online is our Twitter handle.
And all of the contributors, you, Joe, Patrick, you guys are all on Twitter. Give people those sites so they can become followers of you guys on Twitter and get even bonus coverage of what's going on.
My Twitter handle is @SteveWittick, and my last name is spelled Wittich. Patrick is @PatrickTSO, or actually I think it's @TSO Patrick, and then Joe is @Joe Burke.
Patrick will post pictures on Twitter. He did so last week before he got to Long Beach. We were enjoying the sunny and 75-degree weather, and he was getting snow in his home in Denver. And it was nice to be able to poke a little fun at him. But labor of love for you guys, no question. And you provide great coverage of now the Mazda Road to Indy Series and also the Verizon IndyCar Series. Power, Dixon, Hinch, Munoz, Pagano, Bourdais, Montoya, Aloshin, Newgarden, Rahal, the top 10. Hawksworth, Sato, Chilton, Castro, Nevis, Hunter Ray, the top 15. Kimball, Kanan, Andretti, Rossi, Daly, Luca, Filippi, Dave. I think, with the possible exception of a couple of offs, most notably the one by Takuma Sato, so far event-free for most of these race teams. They haven't made things too difficult for the crew guys in terms of fixing banged-up race cars.
A lot of runoff area will do that, and that's what makes this place so much fun to come to. And these guys, they hang it out there. There's no doubt about it. They enjoy coming back to Barber Motorsports Park now in the seventh time. Hard to believe it. Seventh time now. Will Power. I mean, here we go. Hinch, Munoz, I think might be the surprise in the top 5 in this practice session with the Honda. But favorites for pole, Steve. What do you think coming up later this afternoon?
It's always going to be tough to beat Will Power. He seems to have that uncanny ability to just pull that ultimate lap out at that perfect time. I expect Bourdais to be right up there. They've run very well here in the past, run into some problems during the race, but have been very quick.
Checkered flag is out of the session. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Keep up the good work. We'll have you back again real soon.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
And Dave, first, your work is just beginning with us here this weekend. Of course, we have the Indy Lights race coming up here, and at the top of the hour, then we'll go into IndyCar qualifying this afternoon. We're happy to have you with us this week.
Just great to be back. Love coming back to Barber Motorsports Park. It's one of those when the calendar comes out, you look at the date. Great, I'm going to be at Barber Motorsports Park in late April once again.
So Will Power, we get a replay of him flinging it around through turn number 5, as many have done. So grip is at a premium there. We'll see how it unfolds when we get set to go qualifying. Your top 10: Will Power, Dixon, Hinchcliffe, Munoz, Pagano, Bourdais, Montoya, Aloshin, Newgarden, and Graham Rahal. Again at the top of the hour, Indy Lights race number 1. Nick Yeoman, Davey Hamilton will be in the booth. Jake Query, Michael Young out on the course. Dave First and Rob Howden on pit road. Then join us at 2:55 Central, 3:55 Eastern this afternoon, as the whole gang will be together as we get set to go qualifying in preparation for the Honda Indy Grand Prix of Alabama. The Director of Engineering of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network and IndyCar Radio is Rick Evans. The Director of the network is Wally Levitt. Our thanks to Nick Yeoman and Jake Query for their work on pit road. Thanks to Steve Wittick, Dave First, solid job in the booth as always. I'm Mark Janes. So long for now from Barber Motorsports Park.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom.
Check it 1-2 up on the roof. 1-2. Check, check, check. I'm walking around. There's a lot of antennas up here, Rick. So.
Victory lane as A.J. Foyt takes now his victory lane.
Oh, great.
Around the 2.5 miles.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm about right towards. I don't know. I'm right above the power pit box, right by Firestone start finish. So if I'm good here, I'll just kind of hang in this area. So I can still see where Jake's going to be and see 5 and 6 well. So thank you.
And then the first woman to enter, to qualify, and to compete in a 500-mile race, Janet Guthrie of New York City. But for the moment, the name is A.J. Foyt of Houston, Texas. The car is his, a Coyote. The engine is his, a Foyt V8. And happiness, fame, and fortune are his too. He is the winner of the 61st running of the Indianapolis 500. Pat Sedan continues to
From the Barber Motorsports Park.
And Jones, you're going to be pretty happy.
He will use that in just minutes to stop the race, to bring the cars into the pits. The 500-mile race is complete. The checkered flag and the red flag are waved together. And the checkered flag was displayed first here for A.J. Foyt. He is now on the pit lane. The people are moving out to his car as he comes down through the pits. A very elated crew has begun to run toward victory lane to meet A.J. and to meet Lou Palmer. A.J. cruises through the pit area very, very slowly. very slowly toward the new victory lane in the front of the master control tower here. Ever so slow he comes down. But A.J. Foyt no longer has need for the speed of that V8 Coyote engine. He is the winner here at Indianapolis. And now to interview the winner of this year's Indianapolis 500 here in Victory Lane is Lou Palmer.
And we await A.J. Foyt along with a host of others, including Tony Holman, who was cheering as loudly as the crowd. We've seen what has never been seen before, beginning with a woman driving in the field in the morning and A.J. finishing 4 up front at Indianapolis. Headed into Victory Lane now, A.J. Foyt in the gleaming Gilmore 14 Coyote, the Gilmore Racing Team home, and he wins again.
It's race day, 1980. The place is the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is the 64th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. At this moment, hundreds of thousands of spectators file into this giant and ancient speedway. As the sun began to light the eastern sky early this Indiana morning, aerial bombs shattered the stillness of the dawn and signaled the opening of the gates. For over 5 hours now, the crowd has poured through.
This is IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Through those gates. Before the green flag falls, in just over 40 minutes, the crowd is expected to swell to well over 300,000. Each year, these fans make their pilgrimage to the center of Indiana. They come from around the world. They are joined in heritage only gained by almost 7 decades of history. Many of these fans wear the bright colors reflected by the cars driven by their favorites. The grandstands, stretching for miles, are a kaleidoscope of bright color. Their spirits are high. They're here to open a new decade of racing at Indianapolis. This day is bright and blue. The temperature is 74 degrees. The forecast is for clear and sunny weather. Seconds ago, you joined race fans around the world. At this moment, the sounds of Indianapolis beam out from transmitters across the United States. Shortwave transmitters and satellites fling our words across the oceans and around the globe. You join us in a singular experience. The world's largest radio network combines you, the race fan from afar, with those gathered here at the Speedway. I'm Paul Page, and I'm proud to serve you once again as the voice of the 500.
Less than half a lap ago, Grody Johncock by 5 car lengths over Rick Mears. They're in the north short chute. Here they come. This is the final quarter lap. Johncock maintains the lead. The voice of the 500, Paul Page. Who's going to win it?
Gordon Johncock off the 4th turn. Mears is right behind him. Johncock. Mears makes a try. Johncock wins it by less than 1/10 of a second. Gordon Johncock has won his second 500. Rick Mears comes across in second place, almost side by side. And you should see the celebration that is taking place in the Petrick Racing pit. An incredible celebration now as they run down toward Victory Lane. What a finish.
Let's see what happens with the 68.
He's going to climb
the fence. He is out of the car, and Helio Castroneves climbs the fence in the front straight.
IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network. IndyCar Radio on the IMS Radio Network.
Sebastian Bourdais took a look to the outside of Ryan Hunter-Reay, but Ryan Hunter-Reay shut the door. Ryan Hunter-Reay already leads this field. Everybody safely through turn number 1 in Long Beach.
Yeah, guys, we got both 6th and 5th place in. Mike Conway all the way down to 21st. A little problem with the front left. Elio Castro-Neves also down and away. 2 good stops. Let's go down to Nick Yeoman.
Yeah, Will Power gives up the 4th position. He pits as well. He'll beat Conway off of pit lane as well as Hawksworth. A routine stop, though, for Will Power as he's down and away.
And down onto Shoreline Drive coming down the back straight. He's got to dodge the manhole covers on the brakes one last time. He successfully negotiates that. Goes through turn 9, coming up to turn 10 and into your view, Mark James.
Mike Conway driving for Ed Carpenter. Paul Page, Ed Carpenter's going to step out of the car on road and street courses and step into victory lane, the 40th anniversary of Long Beach.
The checkered flags, twin checkers. Mike Conway has scored the win here, and what has proven to be an amazing day.
This is IndyCar. This is IndyCar.
Fans will have that white flag for you right now. Coming down for Bob Swikert. There it is. Let's follow Bob Swikert around in number 6, the John Zink Special. He's just going into the south turn, and here he comes, Bill Frosch.
And here he comes, driving beautifully right into that groove. Comes right down in front of us, right now down the chute and into the southeast turn. He takes the southeast turn very nicely, riding the same groove he's ridden for the last 50 miles. Now, Jack Shapiro, you should be able to see him.
I sure can, Bill. Here comes Bobby Swikert, the hometown kid from Speedway City, driving Jack Zink's car out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Jack Zink is a good friend of mine. I know Jack Zink Jr. is really going to be a happy boy. He's going into the northeast turn. He's on his way in there, and I think in a moment, Jim Shelton will catch sight of him.
All right, Jack Shapiro, we certainly can see him. A good-looking car and a good-looking driver, and he's headed for the home stretch. This man has really driven a race. Cool, calm, and collected, and that goes for both driver and automobile. You can hear the cheers in the home stretch, and here's Sid Collins. Pick him up.
We can't see him yet, but here he comes down, I'm sure. That beautiful pink car, the checkered flag is out. Bill Vanderwater, the starter, holds it high, waves it, and there's Bob Swikert, the winner of the Brookside annual 500-mile race.
And there's the white flag for Graham Hill in the American Red Ball Special. Pick him up on turn number 1, Mike Ahern.
From the Barber Motorsports Park in Birmingham, Alabama, it's time for the Indy Lights, presented by Cooper Tires, on the Advance Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
The Legacy Indy Lights 100, one of 2 races, doubleheader weekend here for the Indy Lights Series, presented by Cooper Tires. Thanks for joining us on IndyCar.com, Mazda Road to Indy TV app. My name's Nick Yeoman, as we are excited for rounds 4 and 5 this weekend for the Indy Lights Series presented by Cooper Tires. Joined in the booth by Davey Hamilton. And Davey, we're getting ready to go. A lot of rookie drivers getting to race here at Barber Motorsports Park for the first time. And this is really a racetrack that benefits a lot of the veteran drivers, because it's a lot of places where you can mess up.
This place is so difficult. Such a great racetrack, and the facility is so beautiful here. But it is a challenge, and these rookies have to learn a lot. And matter of fact, Nick, just talking to all the guys coming up here before this race, just all the controversy in qualifying yesterday, right? I mean, so many penalties put out, so many mistakes, a lot of blocking, and these guys, that was in qualifying. You know, so what's going to happen during race conditions? Are they going to be that aggressive and be that defensive on their spots? We'll soon see, and they got to remember, this is a 2-race weekend, not just a 1. They tear their cars up today. they got a lot of work to get them ready for tomorrow.
And that's the last thing as a team owner or one of those crew guys. You don't want to be put behind the 8 ball on a Saturday when you've also got a race on Sunday. So we will see if these drivers mind their P's and Q's to start this event. Earlier, we caught up with pole sitter Ed Jones, who will lead the field to green here for the Legacy Indy Lights 100.
Ed Jones, you got to be pretty happy right now. We know how tough it is to pass here at Barber, and for you to be able to get the job done in that late session run to grab that pole position by a good little margin, you must be happy. Give me your thoughts right now.
Yeah, I mean, you coming into this weekend, pole position was going to be so important. With the history of these races, pretty much all the pole sitters won the race. So yeah, it's critical. We started off not so well yesterday, but we worked really hard and got a good car for FP2 and then brought it this way. I think everyone was so close. You know, it was about whoever nailed that lap, and that time I did it. So yeah, it was great.
You guys went to the new tires yesterday afternoon. Not a lot of teams did that, but you put the new tires on. You think that helped you? Did that give you a little feel on what it was like to be on those new tires, maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it helped quite a bit because we struggle, especially in FP1, with a certain handling. And obviously then the balance is a bit different, and we needed the new tires just to get a new baseline. So yeah, it definitely helped, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the race.
That was our pit reporter, Rob Howden, who will be joined by Dave First a little bit later in the show, that caught up with Ed Jones after his pole run this morning. The big surprise in qualifying was who qualified second. That was Zachary Clayman DeMello. The issue is, though, he failed tech. The ride height was not at the minimum requirement for Indy Lights, so Zachary Clayman DeMello goes from starting second to starting 16th. Dean Stoneman now moves up into the second position. Davey, when you think you've qualified third, and you know on a road course it's so hard to pass, and now all of a sudden you're on the front row, what must the mindset be for Stoneman, who's now got a chance, if he plays his card right, to lead the field in turn one?
You talk about an emotional roller coaster, right? You get out of that car saying, hey, I'm on the front row. And by the way, sometimes the outside front row here is a better spot than the pole going down into turn one. So he had a great position and being so excited, then all of a sudden your car goes through tech and fails. And not just fails a little, it fails enough to put him all the way to the back of the field. And sometimes in tech, if it's something super minor that they don't feel it's an advantage, they may just penalize you a couple spots. And I see these guys have been moved all around in the grid, but man, to go all the way back to the back, that's a tough pill to swallow.
And Clayman DeMello was awfully quick. We'll go ahead and take a look at the lineup as we're still about 4 or 5 minutes from getting the command to fire engines. Ed Jones and Dean Stoneman are on the front row. R.C. Enerson and Shelby Blackstock, a pair of young American drivers, will make up row number 2. Santiago Urrutia will be on the inside of row number 3 with Zach Veach to his outside. Row 4 will see Felix Rosenquist and Kyle Kaiser. That's a pair of winners so far in 2016. In row 5, Scott Hargrove and Dalton Kellett, a pair of rookies. In row 6, Felix Sorales, one of our winners at St. Petersburg, and to his outside starting 12th will be Juan Pedrohita. In row 7, Neil Alberico and Andre Negrao, and out back, Scott Anderson, who was not able to get out for qualifying earlier this morning, and the aforementioned Zachary Clayman DeMello. They'll start 15th and 16th when we drop the green flag. Pretty cool. We've got a couple announcers out on the course for the Legacy Indy Lights 100. One of those guys, Davey, is a couple floors, I should say, above us on top of the press box here at Barber Motorsports Park. Michael Young, you've got a pretty cool view that you're going to call as these drivers roar out of turn number 4 when we get going here in about 4 to 5 minutes.
And the great thing is, Nick, I have the entire roof to myself right now. I will try not to stomp too loudly, but indeed, what a beautiful vantage point it is of this Barber Motorsports Park. And for the fans who have never been here before, it's basically intertwined. You'd have the front straightaway, the cars then sweep down into the Alabama roller coaster. Then they'll come back towards the middle of the course through turns 5 and 6. So you'll see 2 more layers of this track as then they go out into turns 7 and 8 and down the back straightaway. So literally 4 lanes of racing viewing you get to see here at Barber Motorsports Park. I'll have all the action down in turns 5 and 6, and then we'll send things out to Jake Query, who's out in turn number 8, and there's always lots of action out there, Jake.
Always a lot of it, Michael. Thank you very much. Overlooking an absolutely gorgeous day here in Central Alabama. I'm actually looking at turns 8, 9, and then into 10. But what is interesting is the following. It essentially is a long right-handed sweeping downward elevation, because when they enter in through turn number 8, which is a slight right-hander, they're at the top of a hill that winds all the way spiral down to their right. Then they get down to the bottom of this racetrack, go about 350 yards or so, and then a slight left-handed turn that is turn number 10, leaving my view. It is the Barber Motorsports Park Museum. It is a collection of 650 motorcycles on display. Of the 1,500 100 they have in their possession. Nick, an absolutely fantastic facility, a gorgeous day. It's going to be a great day to watch racing, and it's going to be a great place to do it.
Michael Young's a party of one upstairs, and Jake Davey, as we refer to him as the one-man party. So,
well, he is that. We've always known that.
We've got a couple of very talented broadcasters out on the course. It's going to be awesome because this racetrack, so free-flowing, so exciting to watch these drivers mix it up through this 17-turn course where there are plenty of places that can hang you out. We've got a couple of talented pit reporters. Rob Houghton's going to join us a little bit later when he gets done with some pre-rest festivities. Dave First is down on pit lane as well. And Dave, you were up in the booth with me yesterday during that final practice session, and the word that I came up with was intrigue. What intrigues you about this first race here as we get going in about a couple minutes?
Well, what intrigues me might also intrigue Ricardo Juncos, who is standing here. How disappointing for you. You think Zachary Clayman DeMello is going to be on the front row. You guys failed the post-qualifying inspection. Now he's all the way in the back. Hard work's just begun for him here today, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's, the feeling is bad. I mean, it's racing, we understand. Unfortunately, we have second play for today, first play for tomorrow with him. Now we are on the back, but the rules are the rules. We didn't pass the underwing by 1/8 of the inch. For whatever reason, the whole underwing moves. And we didn't find out the problem. We couldn't find nothing wrong, but it's what it is. So now we gotta just look forward. I think we have two solid cars to be on the front row, to be honest, with both cars. Yeah. But situation, you never know what can happen in racing, so we're just gonna keep working. We do what we do, and that's it.
The other great driver, of course, Kyle Kaiser. Kyle, he's gonna mix it up here this afternoon, isn't he?
Yeah, also he coming for 2 pole laps on the very end, and he was in traffic, unfortunately. So we know we had the cars to be there with both drivers. I gotta thank all my team because we was working so hard for this weekend. It's still not over. We had 2 races to go, so we're gonna be positive and we see what we can do.
Good luck this afternoon. Ricardo Juncos, of course, Zachary Clayman DeMello, Kyle Kaiser, his 2 bullets in that gun here this afternoon.
Appreciate that, Dave. First, Davey, 1/8 of an inch on the underwing. Talk us through how much of an advantage can that be, or is that what you mentioned, so small that maybe it wouldn't have made a difference?
Yeah, and I'll give you an example on our Indy cars. And when I first went to Indianapolis, Nick, 100 thousandths of wing wicker on the back of the wing, 100 thousandths little difference would be 1 mile an hour to mile and a half an hour difference. Wow. So that 100 thousandths does make a difference. So when you talk 1/8 of an inch, the bottom of these cars, they're just upside down wings to suck them down to the racetrack. So that does give them more downforce, no question about it. Would have he went, a half a mile an hour slower? Who knows? Or a mile an hour slower? Who knows? But it does make it every bit of downforce you can get, you want, especially on a course like this. But more than likely would have been in the top 2 rows anyways.
All right, like I said, it's a sport of inches. It is a sport of tenths of a second, thousandths of a second, and it's certainly going to be very interesting to see Zachary Clayman DeMello, if he had that fast of a race car, if he can work his way through the front of the field. We are just moments away from getting the engines fired. We jump behind the cockpit, though, to describe this very tricky 17-turn course. I believe this was with Dean Stoneman. We caught up with him earlier today as he gave us a description of a lap around Barber Motorsports Park.
Yeah, as you go across the start-finish line, you come into turn 1, and it's got a huge drop into turn 1. There's very minimal braking. Just clip the apex on the inside, and you're running very wide to the exit curb. There's a little bit of grass, which you try and cut as much as you can, but then turn 2, it's a tend to understeer corner. But you push the entry, and then you just wait for the car to rotate to get on the power. And the climb going up turns 3, 4, and you've got a long straight going into turn 5, which is over the crest braking, which is very difficult because you're braking downhill and you're trying to get the car turned at the same time. So you slow the car, get the car rotated, get a good exit. It's very bumpy on exit at turn 5. It's very easy to hit the rev limiter. So you have to short shift just to miss the bump. And then you've got 8, 9, which is very tricky complex. You've got the curb on the inside, you've got the curb on the left side, and you want to try and rotate the car as it's a real steep downhill section. So on the exit of 9, it's all about getting a good exit through 10, 11. It's very tricky because the car's moving around on the rear, and then you've got turn 12, which is a down the left hill, and you've got a steep climb up through 13 over the crest, and the car gets very light over the top of the hill, and it wants to move around quite a lot on the exit, which is very tricky as you're dropping off over the crest. It's grass on the outside, and then you go to turn 14, 15, which is a fast right-hander, into a double right, turn 16, and then you got 17, which is a long left-hand corner, which you tend to understeer, but it's all about a good exit onto the start-finish line.
That's a lap around Barber Motorsports Park with Dean Stoneman, the rookie driver who will start to the outside of the front row for Andretti Autosport. The engines are fired as the drivers roll off pit lane as we are just about set to go racing. As we mentioned, this is round 4 and 5 for the Indy Lights series with a doubleheader this weekend at Barber Motorsports Park. We take a look back. It was Felix Sorales who opened the season with a victory at St. Petersburg. The next day, it was another Felix Rosenquist, who went to victory lane in race 2 at St. Petersburg. Then it was on to the tricky oval in Phoenix, Arizona, where Kyle Kaiser led flag to flag. So, Davey, 3 races, 3 winners, and we've got, the first 6 drivers in the first 3 rows haven't won this season, so fair bet we may make it 4 out of 4.
Fair bet, unless something crazy happens. As difficult as this track is to pass, I have to say that's going to come out of those first 3 rows. They're non-winners, so I would expect race number 1 here at Barber that we're going to have a new winner, at least for this year.
The lineup again, Ed Jones, the pole sitter, as he makes his way through the S's for the first time here on the opening parade laps. All the drivers weaving back and forth to get a little heat in those tires, get those engines ready to go for these 16 drivers. 35 laps is the distance, or 1 hour, whichever comes first. This place oftentimes is a racetrack where things can go caution-free. Again, Jones and Stoneman on the front row. How about the conditions, Dave? First, yesterday we were dodging thunderstorms. Doesn't look like that dreaded 4-letter R word is going to be an issue today or tomorrow here for the Indy Lights series.
We're not even going to mention that word. I'm looking straight up, see nothing but blue skies, couple of white puffy clouds, but it is near perfect conditions here at beautiful Barber Motorsports Park. A track temperature of 108 degrees, 76 degrees air temperature. I might even take my shirt off. What do you think? Is it? No, maybe not.
Oh, boy.
Easy. Easy.
Well, Michael Young, you're probably already topside with that shirt off, right? Get a nice tan up there.
Yeah, that's the last thing the Alabama fans need to see is my white skin on top of this roof and this sunshine. But it is a beautiful day, Nick Gilman, as the field makes their way around this very first time. It's warm, although it doesn't seem like it's a hot day. You sit up on this roof, and I know the fans out on the back straightaway sitting on the side of the hill, all tucked up underneath those beautiful trees here at Barber Motorsports Park. It's a beautiful day. One more time around, and we're going to cut these guys green.
And, of course, Jake Query's in the museum, and we don't want Jake getting thrown out of the museum for keeping or removing any of his clothing. So we're going to keep it pretty buttoned up and tight and ready to go here for the Indy Lights series. Again, Ed Jones on the pole, Dean Stoneman to his outside as these drivers continue to warm these tires on the second of 2 parade laps. Row 2 is made up of R.C. Anderson and Shelby Blackstock. Great qualifying effort for Shelby Blackstock, who has certainly found a struggle to get up to speed in his sophomore season. It is Santi Urrutia and Zach Veach in row number 3. As I mentioned, all 6 of those drivers have yet to win here in 2014. The rest of the starting field, Felix Rosenquist and Kyle Kaiser in row 4. Row 5 is Scott Hargrove and Dalton Kellick. Felix Sorales, Juan Pedrohita, Neil Alberico, Andre Negrao, Scott Anderson, and Zachary Clayman make up the 16 drivers. Jake Query, the field making their way in front of you for the second time on parade laps out of the museum there in turn 8.
Working their way to the bottom of that long right-handed sweeping turn, the field. Keep in mind it was between 8 and 9 a year ago where a couple of cars got hung up, didn't make it this far on the first lap. I think it's enticing because theoretically to the eye there are 3 racing grooves in that long right-handed sweep, but as Davey talked about and as Dean Stoneman mentioned, it can get a little bit tight and the car is going to want to stay towards the bottom of the racetrack, so you can't give up too much to that temptation. Field all the way through here, Nick, as we're about to go racing here for the Indy Lights presented by Cooper Tires.
Boy, Davey, take a look. I mean, what is it, the field trying to pack up and get 2 by 2? They're about running into each other.
Yeah, they're not doing a very good job. A lot of rookies, a lot of crazy stuff going on. It looks like somebody already went off. Yeah, somebody already spun.
Dean Stoneman, who's supposed to start second, he stalled there. That appears to be on the uphill portion between 13 and 14, and because of that, we're going to see no start because Stoneman, as you can see, Davey, he was supposed to start to the outside, and Ed Jones all by himself there on the front row.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if there's definitely a no start, but I don't know if they're going to let him come back to the front of the field. He's working his way back to that front. He's coming by all the traffic right now, and you know, that's back to that stop and go and kind of mess with each other a little bit, that it could have caught him out and he had to hit the brakes just to stall the car.
So again, as these drivers weave back and forth, to get a little heat in those tires. We saw quite a few drivers locking them up to prevent running into each other, so Dean Stoneman going to try to move his way back to the front of the spot. And we just got word, Davey, that because that car came to a stop, Dean Stoneman will now go to the rear of the field.
Anytime in any kind of racing, if you cause a yellow of any kind, that means you go to the back. We've had situations in our short track sprint cars, same way. Green would come out, first lap not complete, yellow comes out, and unfortunately some of the guys that didn't have anything to do with the accident that had to come to a stop, they go to the back as well. But on this one here, who knows? I didn't see a replay yet on exactly what happened to him, but wow, going from outside front row, man, it just keeps happening. I mean, this weekend's been crazy for these guys and what's going on.
That is absolutely brutal for now Zachary Clamandamello, who qualified second, Dean Stoneman, who rolled off of pit lane second. Both of those drivers will now make up row number 8. So that is a brutal hand to be dealt. And Jake Query, as they make their way in front of you, are things sorting out any more than what we've seen in the first 2 parade laps?
No, starting now, everybody just warming those tires up. How about the morning for R.C. Enerson? Get up, qualify, and then wait. And while you're having breakfast, you move up 2 spots, essentially. So R.C. Enerson now the one that will be starting second behind Ed Jones.
What an opportunity for R.C. Enerson in his sophomore season. Expected to contend for the title. Has only seen 1 podium so far to start the season in third at Phoenix a couple weeks ago. So field will now pack up 2 by 2, Davey, as we expect to get things going. It is Ed Jones to the inside. In fact, it looks like Shelby Blackstock is actually, because he started 4th, is going to move up to that second position.
That's a nice little bonus for him.
Here come the drivers out of turns 16 and 17 for the first time. We should see the green flag. Ed Jones accelerates out of turn 17. Green flag, we wait for it. It is in the air, and we are racing at Barber Motorsports Park. Jones clears the front 2. They're side by side for second, side by side for 4th and 5th. Blackstock goes off track just a bit to the inside. A lot of dirt kicked up to the exit of turn number 2, but it is Ed Jones and R.C. Enerson, Michael Young, as they race out of turn number 3.
Ed Jones all by himself. He had a great start. Enerson. Then it's the number 14 machine of Rosenquist, who's up to P3. Santi Urrutia, nice move to the inside. As it looks at Shelby Blackstock, now shuffled back just a bit. And the machine of Scott Hargrove with a great move him up to P5. The field makes their way through 7.
Good start for Hargrove. He had a fractured practice session yesterday with an oil problem. Field single file now with Jones at the bottom of turn number 9. Movement in the back of the field. Felix Sorales trying to move in on Shelby Blackstock. Blackstock shut the door.
So it is Jones, followed by Enerson, followed by Felix Rosenquist, the top 3 as they sort their way out of lap number 1. Shelby Blackstock was the car that really had to make some aggressive maneuvers to try to hold off. He's running 6th. But Davey, interesting as they ran into turn number 1. How concerned are you? I saw a lot of dirt kicked up there in turn number 1.
Well, that's going to happen. It's really a blind corner going down into that turn 1 with the drop-off they have. But I'll tell you, Rosenquist figured it out. He started 7th in this race. Now, he did move up when Stoneman went to the back, but finds himself in 3rd right now in his first lap.
So it is Ed Jones making his way through the Alabama roller coaster as we get a replay of that first lap. He'll roar out of the turn number 4, Michael Young, as he leads the field here on lap 2.
About an 8-car length advantage for Ed Jones. Really locked up there. The second place machine of R.C. Enerson. And for Dean Stoneman, he has trailed the field and now comes down pit lane. The field makes their way through Charlotte's Web, but what a tough break for Dean Stoneman, who started on the front row, now finds himself on pit lane. The field to Jake Query.
Rosenquist trying to look very hard now in through turn number 9, trying to close in on R.C. Enerson. Distance about 2 car lengths back. Ed Jones 10 car lengths in front of both.
Rosenquist all over that rear wing of the second place running R.C. Enerson. Gap now about 3 or 4 car lengths. Davey, you just got to see a replay of the opening laps. That was an onboard with Zach Veach. A lot of evasive maneuvers.
Yeah, you know what? He got stuck on the bottom going down through turns and through turn 3. And when he came up that hill, man, that thing, he did a great job. Fast hand saved him there because that thing was to the lock trying to save it going up that hill. Lost a couple positions, but didn't lose the race car, which is the most important. And then we got a replay on and Rosenquist as well. He just went outside of everybody down there through turn 2. Ooh, and
we got an issue. It is Felix Rosenquist. This is contact in a battle for 3rd between he and Santi Urrutia, who got into the rear wing of Felix Rosenquist. Urrutia continues on in 3rd, but Rosenquist slides off in turn number 1 into the gravel. It appears to be one of those those tires is flat. And Davey, as you get a look at the replay, side by side to a degree, Urrutia showed him a nose into turn number 1 as we get a full course yellow.
I'm going to look really close here, and yes, he does get him in that left rear tire. At first, I thought maybe he didn't touch him, but he absolutely did. It looks like it maybe even cut his tire down, but now he's stuck in the pea gravel. Now, he didn't hit the fence, which is a good thing. They get him towed out of there, and you can see the gravel, how hot those tires are, and that gravel stuck to those Cooper tires right there. But boy, what a running third, such a great start, and then getting that little tap. That's back to being patient, starting this race.
So he started 7th and jumped up to 3rd. And Davey, as you get a look, Felix Rosenqvist isn't the only one with the problem. Urrutia, who made contact, appears to have issues as well.
Well, Urrutia, that really was all on him. I mean, nobody to blame but Urrutia, and now it hurts himself. Not only did he take himself running 4th, going for 3rd, he's going to have to come in and change his nose piece because his nose wing's hanging down. So those are, you never win on those situations, especially this early in the race.
Yeah, the left front side of that wing looks like it's bouncing up and down the racetrack. So, Rob Howden, I expect to see Santi Urrutia and Felix Rosenqvist headed your way. During all of that action, I know Davey mentioned it, or I think Michael Young mentioned, Dean Stoneman, who had the penalty to start the race at center of the back of the field. He made his way to pit lane, and as I look down, he's still there in front of you.
Yeah, I'm here with him right now, the number 27 of Stoneman, bringing the Andretti Autosport entry in here. They're complaining possibly of a fuel issue. Obviously, we all looked at that start. We saw that Ed Jones kind of checked up a little bit, and it looked like Dean maybe just jumped on the brakes and stalled the car. Indeed, it's some kind of an issue in the engine itself, whether it's electrical or whether it's fuel, but it's something that's more terminal right now. They're going to work on it like crazy, but it wasn't just a one-off incident for Dean Stoneman. He's on pit lane here, and they're going to work on the car.
Davey, I think about where Stoneman stalled on the racetrack, and it was just at the crest towards the top of a hill. Would that make sense here in this fuel problem?
Yeah, now that we see that maybe there is a fuel problem, it could be exactly that. You're at slow speeds and maybe the pickup or something's not. Now, it shouldn't really matter on a hill when you're full of fuel. I mean, the pump should be totally submerged, have plenty of fuel, but if it's not working properly, I mean, that could be the situation to where it's just not pumping the fuel into the engine. So could have been that situation. We'll find out more if he makes it back out on track.
5 of 30 laps in the books, working a full course caution for an incident in turn number 1 that we understand is under review because Santi Urrutia, it was a very aggressive move to the inside of Felix Rosenqvist. The two made contact and Rosenqvist slid off course. And Davey, as you see the whole Macho safety crew work to get Rosenqvist on some tarmac so he can pull away, looks like there may be some issues for him.
He definitely has a flat left rear tire, so that nose wing cut his tire down. That's what shipped him, and now he's got to try to make it all the way back around to get a new tire without scraping the bottom of the car off. So, boy, that's just so unfortunate. Now, with that right rear flat, or I'm sorry, the left rear flat like that, he has to be really careful because these underwings on these race cars cost a lot of money, number 1. But number 2 is if you damage him, you really can't race with him too well. So as you can see, his right front there as he makes his way around the racetrack.
And we've just gotten word, Indy Lights Series has handed down a penalty to 3rd place, or now 4th place running Santi Urrutia. He will get a drive-through penalty when they go green. Davey, is that the right call?
Well, it absolutely is the right call, but they need to bring him in anyways for a replacement of a nose wing just for safety as well. But yeah, he should. That's not good. You can't, especially this early in the race, as we talked, Nick. Just take it. It's lap 5, right? I mean, this is a long race. Get through it. You have a race tomorrow. But it took himself out of a potential. Obviously, he was faster than Rosenqvist, so he could have, found himself on the podium.
Rob Howden, the Pro Mazda champion, is going to go to the tail of the field based on this front wing adjustment, or front wing change, but it's going to be a big issue with this pass-through penalty. He's in front of you.
Yeah, it's a double penalty here for Santi Urrutia. He's down and away here right now, but looking at the front wing here, damage to the actual wing upright itself. The wing it's intact, but it's just the wing upright that's actually snapped off where it made contact with the right rear, or the left rear rather, of Felix Rosenqvist. And again, see these young drivers work their way up in here. There's so much pressure on them to do well. They know they need this scholarship. They need to run well. And Santi Urrutia, as you guys said, just got a little too deep in there, and it's a shame to see 2 drivers have their races ruined just for a little bit of impatience.
The good news, though, Davey, it's a double-header weekend that neither of those drivers tore up those cars too terribly bad. If they take take care of business, bring them home, they've got a chance tomorrow to salvage some points.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you know who does it help? The guy that is usually up here with us or sometimes on pit road with us is Zach Veach. He was in that 8 spot, 2 cars going out, moves him into that 6th position. And we've seen how loose he got and what a great save he had coming up that hill. So we'll see if he can find his way to the podium.
Dave, first, how about the second driver, the driver who may have got the worst of that incident? Felix Rosenqvist on pit lane in front of you.
Well, there's no doubt he perhaps got the worst of it, certainly when you consider the point standings and that scholarship at the end of the season. They're going to change, of course, that left rear tire for Felix Rosenqvist, so I don't see any other damage. So that's certainly good news for the young Swede, as Rosenqvist now tries to pull away, stalls it a couple of times. He's going to restart it, finally get back underway. But I'll tell you what, Rosenqvist, after really having a nice start to the season on the streets of St. Pete, finished 7th in that first race. Of course, won from pole on that Sunday in St. Pete, struggled on the oval at Phoenix, but he was looking to have a really good weekend here at Barber Motorsports Park. You go back to the test a couple of weeks ago, they were second quick in that test. So Felix, boy, he's going to be thinking about the points he's losing here so far this weekend.
He's going to fall about a lap and a half down as we go back to green flag racing. Good start for Ed Jones. They'll go side by side into turn number 2. Scott Hargrove jumped to the outside of R.C. Enerson, couldn't make it stick. Now he'll go back to the outside through the Alabama roller coaster. Ed Jones clear through turn number 3, but Michael Young, the battle is on for second.
Scott Hargrove made a bold move to the outside of the 400-foot marker, tries it again on the outside of R.C. Enerson, down into Charlotte's Web. Now it's the number 4 machine of Felix Sorales trying to make his move as R.C. Enerson goes off. He'll lose 1, 2, 3, 4 positions as he files back in, and now Zachary Clayman DeMello actually gets by him as well. What a bad loss for R.C. Enerson as he drops 5 positions.
Hargrove now trying to hold off Felix Sorales. That's the battle for the second spot. Ed Jones already through turn number 10 with an 8 car length advantage.
All clear for Ed Jones, who's up to P1. Davey, Scott Hargrove was aggressive, and he may have problems. He's slowing on the backstretch. Felix Sorales jumps around him. Shelby Blackstock's going to lose a spot to Zach Veach as he passes both of them. Now Blackstock to the inside. Hargrove with issues, and Davey again, 2 drivers battling for a second or third running spot. And both of them have issues. What did you see there at the exit of the Charlotte's Web portion of the track between both drivers, Scott Hargrove and R.C. Enerson?
Well, number 1 is Enerson was really kind of blocking Hargrove. Hargrove had the faster car. He was beside him several times. He kind of got him shut off a few times. I call that a little bit of a racing deal, but they did get together. Now, guess what? They're both coming in the pit lane right now. So back to look at Veach. He's already on that podium, and we talked about just being smart, and he could have lost it on the first lap, but he lost some positions, but he's already back into 3rd.
Davey, second running Felix Sorales started this race 11th, and he's up to 2nd, and we're on just lap number 7. So Jake Query, give us the rundown as they make their way out of turn number 7, and head towards you.
Jones, Sorales, and Veach right now, 1 through 3. Then it's Blackstock, then Kaiser, and then guess who's behind him in the 6th spot? None other than that young man, Zachary Clayman DeMello, who had the violation, started at the back of the field, now due to attrition, works his way right back to the middle of the pack.
Santi Urrutia served that drive-through penalty just moments ago, so all cleared in terms of that incident that he had in turn number 1. But for the rest of this field, gotta be smiling with some of the positions that they picked up here at the beginning of the race. As for Ed Jones, clear sailing. He's about 8 to 9 car lengths. The advantage back to 2nd place running Felix Sorales. That is his teammate. Zach Veach runs 3rd, Michael Young, as they roar out of turn number 4 here on lap 7.
Yeah, for Ed Jones, all that battling back in the back of the pack has allowed him to break away 11 car lengths. It is Ed Jones, then Sorales P2, Zach Veach, a nice run P3. Heavy braking by P5. We forget about Shelby Blackstock running 4. Kyle Kaiser locks him up heavy into Charlotte's Web. He loses about 3 to 4 car lengths, but Ed Jones clear sailing, a 10 car length advantage.
The thing that we forget about sometimes in watching the Indy Lights is that you have drivers that are trying to learn that balance between when to be aggressive and when to passively sit back and let the track come to you just a little bit. Ed Jones, obviously a guy with a lot of experience in different circuits. So far, the track has been really good to him. Jones with about an 8 car length advantage, Nick.
Best battle on the track, Davey, probably for that final spot in the top 5. Kyle Kaiser has it. Zachary Clayman DeMello about 2 to 3 car lengths back. And these Haas drivers are sliding all over this racetrack.
Yeah, how about Clement DeMello? I mean, starting in the back of this field, finding himself in that 6th position. He's done a great job. There's been some attrition, but he's had to pass a lot of guys too. It wasn't all on attrition. He may be gained 4 spots on attrition, but man, he's working his way towards the front.
So a couple early incidents to reset. The first one with Felix Rosenquist, contact with he and Scott Hargrove. Both of those drivers, or Felix Rosenquist and Santi Urrutia, both of those drivers have been taken out of contention, losing a couple laps. The second one involving Scott Hargrove and R.C. Enerson. For Hargrove, he came down pit lane and made an adjustment. He fell a lap down. As for Enerson, he resets in 7th position. So no real damage to the Schmidt-Peterson driver in his second year of Indy Lights competition. Right now running 7th. The only real hit that he took was in terms of track position. So Ed Jones, Felix Sorales, Zach Veach, your top 3. Shelby Blackstock has done a good job of avoiding the chaos here in the opening laps. Kyle Kaiser runs 5th. Zachary Clement DeMello runs 6th as he tries to run down Kyle Kaiser. A lap ago, he was 3 to 4 car lengths behind. Now, Davey, Kaiser's comfortably stretched that out here to about 4 or 5.
4 or 5, and they're teammates, by the way. So they don't want to mess up with each other as well. Right now is a good time just to ride a little bit, figure out where these tires are going to go, how good they're going to be at the end of this race. Still really early on in this race to go too hard and burn your tires up.
Comfortable lead for Ed Jones. It's about 8 to 10 car lengths as they race through turns number 2, number 3 now. It's a downhill swooping right-hand corner. The leader, Michael Young, will crawl up the hill with about a 6 to 7 car length lead over his teammate Felix Sorales.
The last 2 laps or so, Felix Sorales starting to close in on Ed Jones. Shelby Blackstock right on the rear wing of Zach Veach, but that gap that Ed Jones has slowly deteriorating as Felix Sorales has a nice run, loses a little bit out of Charlotte's Wet. Ed Jones still up by about 7/8 car lengths.
Front 4 have kind of pulled away. Jones, Sorales, Veach, and Blackstock. They've got about a 3-second advantage back to 5th place running Kyle Kaiser. Let's go back to pit lane and check in with Rob Houghton with one of our winners already this weekend, Rob.
Yeah, Nick Yeoman, we have 6 races here in the Mazda Road to Indy. One of them already in the books, and that was won by Parker Thompson. Parker, you were able to score that first win. Your second year in the series. Last year you vied for Rookie of the Year. You had a podium. This was the first win, though, and that's that one. You finally get off your back. You got to feel so confident coming into today's race.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge victory for me yesterday. You know, to really get that first win is great for Team Cape Motorsports. We had a rough St. Petersburg, and we came back and really proved ourselves.
You're quick in qualifying, and you have to sit down and have that mindset of, hey, you know what, I got to get away early on those cold tire laps. The first couple laps, I got to get that half-second gap.
For sure. I mean, that's always the approach, but here you can really kill the tires in the first few laps, so you want to manage that. It's a long race. There's a lot of time to get by, so just make sure I got the Cooper tire rubber under me, and we'll be good to go.
What about today? Now, back-to-back is what you want to do. You know, that's the way to do it. Spencer Pigot did it last year in Indy Lights, and it kind of got him into the championship chase. What's your mindset trying to think about back-to-back? Did you not think about that? Is it just one race at a time?
You know what? Of course it's on my mind, but we're going out to have a solid points finish. That's the big thing for the championship. We really worked our way back in yesterday. We closed the gap to the championship leader. So solid points finish to end off our Barber experience, and if I take the win, I take the win.
Well done yesterday. Good luck today.
Thank you very much.
Parker Thompson, folks, a young Canadian driver out of Red Deal, Alberta. Definitely a guy you'll want to watch coming up through the Mazda Road to Indy.
May very well find his way in Indy Lights here in the next handful of years, that's for sure. Davey, we've been watching Ed Jones. It's hard to tell how hard he's been pushing, but he's got 3 cars now all over his rear wing that are probably going to push the pace here.
Yeah, 1st through 4th is doing a great job putting pressure on him. Now, like you said, is he just taking it easy, knowing this place is very difficult to pass? There's not that many passing zones. He knows where they're at. As long as he's fast in those areas, he can kind of take it easy on his car for a while. But I'll tell you who I'm impressed with. Blackstock. I mean, he's done such a good job, I think, this year, really adapting with Andretti, finding some speed. You know, last year we've seen him struggle a lot, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you, he really has caught on to these cars, and he's got more pressure on Veach than anything else. And Veach is, you know, he's got his hands full from the in-car camera.
Yeah, boy, as they roll out of Charlotte's Web, Shelby Blackstock got very close to the rear wing of the Bilardi Auto Racing, 3rd place running Zach Veach. Jake Queries, they make their way down the hill, the front 4 in front of you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Sorales looks like he's closing in just a little bit on Jones. Veach is right there in Blackstock. To your point, those 4 have really checked out on Kyle Kaiser.
Boy, they just slide their way through the exit of turn number 10, Davey. I mean, they're on the edge of control with these race cars.
There's no question that that's a slide through that corner. That's super high speed. Matter of fact, I was watching yesterday the IndyCar speeds, and Will Power, who was at the time about 12th kick, he was just touching 160 miles an hour into that straightaway. That means getting through those S's wide open in IndyCar. That's impressive.
And that's ultimately, I mean, in a high-speed portion like that, that's where you're going to make up your most.
You're going to make up your time. I mean, in the high-speed areas, unfortunately, there's not heavy braking going down into that next corner, so it's hard to set people up. And I think that's the biggest key with this racetrack. So many fast areas, but really only one really hard braking area that's going down into that hairpin in Charlotte's Web.
Michael Young, the leaders are in front of you, but you're reporting some issues for Dean Stoneman?
Yeah, right in front of the leaders, Nick Yeoman. He came down into turn 5 and nearly stalled it.
All the way by. Now Stoneman comes into view. Looked like he picked up a little bit of speed entering through turn number 8 and 9, but of course, naturally, that's a downhill decline. Now I watch him out of turn number 9, and coming up, Urrutia is going to pass him on the right-hand side as Stoneman gets out of the way, but is really limping now with enough power to get through turn number 10.
Davey, I got awfully worried because things tighten up, and they are, I mean, it's a single groove racetrack through turns 8 and 9. Stoneman did the gentleman thing to get out of the way.
Oh, yeah, and he looks like he's going to get off the racetrack, but you definitely, fuel problems or something continues to plague him. He just can't get up to speed. But you're right, going down to that area down there, man, that's very difficult.
Rob, he was supposed to start on the outside of the front row for Dean Stoneman, looking for that first career Indy Lights win. It's not going to happen today. In fact, I've seen he's taking that number 27 car back to pit lane, headed your way.
Yeah, Nick, they're doing whatever they can here for Dean Stoneman. They're not even sure what it is right now, but really all they're just trying to do is throw something at the car to try to diagnose it. They're changing wiring looms, they're changing more electronics. They're doing whatever they can to try to get themselves ready for tomorrow. They don't want this thing to pop up tomorrow as well, so that's why they sent him back out. They're going to go back to one of the wiring looms right now, swap that out, doing whatever they can to get this car back to 100%.
We're on lap 15, 21 to go. Davey, how frustrating must that be? Not just for the driver, but for the crew of you're running for points. You want to make the most out of a race, and you can't figure out what the issue is.
Well, it's very difficult, and as they said before, is today is race number 1. There is a race tomorrow, so you do not want these to plague you for tomorrow. So they need to try to get it fixed in the race today so they can come out strong. And they have a whole different starting position tomorrow as well.
Leaders off of turn number 15. No change. Still Jones, Sorales, Veach, Blackstock, and Kaiser. Back to pit lane and Rob Howden.
Yeah, it's been a crazy day, guys, has it not? We've lost some of our top front-running guys we expected to race for the race win here. Scott Hargrove got a great start, was able to jump up into the 4th position, but that contact that actually sent R.C. Enerson off the racetrack, when R.C. went off into the exit turn number 5, he got together with Hargrove, a punctured right rear on the car of Hargrove. Of course, that's why he lost all the speed going onto the back straightaway. He had to come to pit lane for a new Cooper tire. Trouble for Hargrove as well, as the guys that started up front here today just did not have the luck.
And it's just been a wild first of 2 races here at Barber Motorsports Park as we run on lap 16 with 20 to go here at Barber Motorsports Park. Ed Jones is your leader. Felix Sorales is second. Zach Veach runs third. Shelby Blackstock fourth. Davey, as much as things rubber band and got tight there at the front 4 seemed like they kind of paced their way out and have gotten comfortable here.
Yeah, I think the weak link right there is Zach Veach. He's in that 3rd position, but he's losing ground to the first 2 guys. But man, he's got Blackstock all over the back of him, and he has to. He's driving the wheels off that car. And I don't think it's handling to his likings, but he's such a good driver. He keep that 3rd place right now. But then the battle behind those 4 guys is pretty amazing right now. Kaiser, Anderson. There's a lot of them battling out in the back right now.
Certainly. Ed Jones is the leader as he heads through towards turn number 5. Michael Young, he's in front of you.
He's kind of on cruise control right now. Felix Sorales closed in a little bit and then fell back. Zach Veach is the one who's kind of lost touch with Felix Sorales. He was a lot closer. Shelby Blackstock about 3 car lengths behind Veach, I should say. And for Shelby Blackstock, he said, guys, basically this is year 1 all over again for myself and this team. Last year was pretty much a throwaway. He said, we're just about to the point now in the season where I think things are starting to click. We're figuring this car out. We're finding good baselines. So for Shelby Blackstock, from this point forward, I expect to see some pretty big things from him as he runs P4.
Yeah, this would certainly be a big result, Davey, if Shelby Blackstock can bring it home in the top 5, because he struggled quite a bit as a rookie in Indy Lights a year ago.
Yeah, we didn't know what it was, but I'm glad that we were able to talk to him and find out what the deal was. Ooh, he got super sideways right there just as we seen him. He may take a little easier to that corner next time. But he is a guy that we just didn't know if it was the car, if it was him, it was the combination or what. But as he said, they've been working. They've got the balance of this new race car, this new Indy Lights car, which is a fabulous car. And he seems to be clicking right now. So he's putting pressure on and showing that he could be a winner.
Back to pit lane and Rob Howden.
Yeah, guys, have a look at that top 5. They're all second-year drivers who have shown the poise, the maturity, the seasoning that comes from one season already in Indy Lights. These guys are a lot calmer when they come to the racetrack than some of the rookies here that are really trying to fight for a position. But I did have a very quick opportunity to talk to Kent Boyer in the Belardi Auto Racing pit, and I said, hey, what's going on with Zach Veach? They said, he's just biding his time right now running around. Zach not saying a lot on the radio, but he's not pushing very hard. He knows how long this race is. Zach still believes he's got a car that's going to be good near the end of this race.
Michael Young, I wondered how hard those Carlin teammates were pushing. Felix Sorrellas pushing awful hard there into Charlotte's Web.
Well, if Zach Veach wasn't pushing, Felix Sorrellas certainly was. He locked him up at about the 100-foot marker and slid all the way into the turn. Tire smoke from that machine. Not sure if he's flat-spotted those Cooper tires or not, but he really locked him up. Lost about 4 to 5 car lengths on leader Ed Jones. So if Zach Veach isn't pushing, Felix Sorrellas certainly is. As they come down the main straightaway, he's closed that gap back up to about 6 car lengths, Nick Gilman.
And I'll tell you what, Kyle Kaiser starting to run down 4th place running Shelby Blackstock. So this may get very interesting before it's all said and done with 17 laps to go. Dave First, you're with the car owner for the drivers running 1st and 2nd here at Barber.
Yeah, you would think when you have a couple of cars that you own and they're 1 and 2, you'd be all smiles. And Trevor Carlin's watching the monitor like the rest of us and watching what's going on of the racetrack. Tell you what, Felix Sorrellas isn't backing down, is he?
No, he's pushing like hell, and it's quite nerve-wracking from our side. You know, we just want the guys to bring them home. So we saw what happened in the first couple of laps, and we don't want that to happen to our guys.
Are there, quote-unquote, do you get on the radio, and is there any team command out there, or no?
No way. These guys are racing for themselves, and that's how we do it at Carlin. Let them get on with it.
Tell me a little bit about Ed Jones and his development. He seems, really in the last couple of weeks, light years more comfortable perhaps than maybe what he was last year.
Well, you know, he's getting mature. This is the first time he's coming back to the circuits for the 2nd time, so he's comfortable, he's confident with the team, he knows all the guys, and he believes in himself, so that's what you need to be a winner.
How big is that, a comfort level inside a cockpit?
Well, it's massive. It makes all the difference. That's the most important thing. The car is secondary. It's how the driver feels.
If you will, Felix is kind of the newbie here, moving over from Belardi last year, hopping on here with Team Carlin, and how comfortable is he with this team so far?
Well, he's a lovely kid. He's desperate to do well for us. We're giving him all the support that we can, and he's delivering for us, so what can I say?
And running 2nd in the championship isn't bad either, right?
Fantastic, and hopefully perhaps leading at the end of the weekend.
All right, we'll let you get back to your nervousness, okay?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Trevor Carlin, yeah, he's smiling now, but, guys, just bring it home. That's certainly when on a double-header weekend, that's key here at Barber Motorsports Park.
That lovely kid, Felix Sorrellas, doing a lovely job. The way he has avoided all the chaos in the race's opening 5 or 6 laps. Again, he started in 11th in the inside of row number 6. Gained a couple positions based on the way the lineup was shaken up, but to avoid all that chaos and to be running 2nd at a place where it's awfully tough to pass here at Barber Motorsports Park is awfully impressive. Ed Jones is your leader. Felix Sorrellas runs 2nd. Zach Veach is 3rd. Shelby Blackstock is 4th. 5th is Kyle Kaiser. Zachary Clayman DeMello is charged from the back to run 6th. R.C. Anderson is 7th. Juan Pedro Hita 8th. Andre Negrao runs 9th, and Dalton Kellett rounds out the top 10 as we are under 15 laps to go here in the Legacy Indy Lights 100. Michael Young, those Carlin teammates will roar out of turn number 4. Is that battle for the lead tightening up here with 15 to go?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what had happened because Felix Sorrellas, as we had said just a couple of laps ago, locking him up, but they have pulled away from 3rd place running Zach Veach, so it's basically 2 battles right now. Ed Jones and Sorrellas, the 2 Carlin drivers, drive 1 and 2, about 8 car lengths between them. Then Zach Veach, about a 20 car length disadvantage behind 2nd place running Sorrellas, and then Shelby Blackstock right behind him, P4.
Jake, how about that battle there for 3rd?
Yeah, exactly right. It appears as though right now there are 2 different pairs that have broken themselves off. That Carlin team up front, then that battle for 3rd, which is between Veach and Blackstock. Those two pairs each have the same amount of distance between the two of them. Veach doing a nice job holding up Blackstock. That's about a 15 or 20 yard advantage.
Boy, that battle for the lead is getting awful interesting as they make their way through the carousel. Jones has about a 2 to 3 car length lead over his teammate Felix Sorales. Sorales has gone to victory lane already once this year. Jones has not. It's closing in as they make their way through turn number 1. Jones has about a 3 to 4 car length lead, swings that car a lot wider than Sorales as they race out of the Alabama roller coaster. Michael Young, Felix Sorales all over the rear wing of his teammate.
Well, he has closed the gap down to about 3 car lengths now. Let's see how he does at the entrance of Charlotte's Web. Great job. Sorales brakes hard down into the turn. Now Ed Jones able to gap himself about 4 car lengths as Sorales drops back just a little bit. The gap's still about 20 car lengths. It's Veach, Blackstock, Kyle Kaiser, your top 5.
The thing for Sorales is this. It's not that he's putting the car anywhere incorrectly. It's that his teammate Ed Jones is in either. The distance is the same each time by. Nick, bottom line, those two really threatening now to put Zach Veach far in the rearview mirror.
David, we talked about 2 battles, the one for the lead, the one for third, but you've been watching that one for 5th between Kyle Kaiser and Zachary Clayman DeMello, another pair of teammates.
Yeah, and how about that? They just had Kaiser had the fastest lap that last time about, and Clayman DeMello, he had the second fastest lap. So what does that mean? They're catching Blackstock right now and Veach's battle. So that 4th, 5th, and 6th position is now almost going to get caught up to the 3rd, 4th place battle.
As the leaders cross the line, 13 laps to go. There go the front 2. There go 3 and 4, 5 and 6. That's how tight they run into turn number 1 of the Alabama roller coaster. Sorales will swing it a little bit wider this time as they race off. A little bit of brake smoke further back. That was from Zachary Clayman DeMello. Michael Young, this lap, Ed Jones a little bit more comfortable running in the lead.
It's interesting to watch Ed Jones run. It looks about the last portion of the course from turns 12 through 17. That's where Ed Jones kind of loses, and then Felix Sorales gains. And then it's this front stretch that he kind of pulls off a little bit as well.
Might be having some issues with Michael Young's equipment there as he is, as mentioned, a couple floors above us as they run down the back straightaway. The leaders, Ed Jones and Felix Sorales, no change. Let's go back to pit lane and catch up with Rob Howden.
Yeah, I already had a chance to talk to a USF 2000 race winner. I got the guy who's going to start on the pole position from the Pro Mazda race this afternoon. Aaron Thielitz for Team Pelfrey. You got to be thrilled right now. Just the way you have adapted to this Pro Mazda car coming out of the box with a race win at St. Petersburg, and then you come here and put it on pole at a track that you know qualifying is important. Give me your thoughts heading into the race this afternoon.
Yeah, obviously qualifying on pole here at Barber Motorsports Park, extremely important. It's tough to pass here, a lot of high-speed corners, only one hard braking zone. So to come out of the box here, grab pole position in tricky conditions yesterday, it's awesome. Can't thank the Team Pelfrey guys enough.
Let's talk about that a little bit. It was wet at the start when the rain came through. It was wet but no standing water. You guys sat on pit lane with your Cooper tire slicks, didn't go to rains at all, and waited till the end of the session. I know you guys felt like that was the right idea, and indeed it ended up being the right call. The track dried up. It must have been agonizing, though, being on pit lane, sitting there watching other guys turn lap times.
To be honest, I just sat there and closed my eyes and tried to take a little nap because I knew it'd be a bit more exciting if I was watching it. So I just closed my eyes and waited for Tom Knapp to tell me to go.
Hey, listen, you've seen 2 starts already here, one in USF 2000, one in Indy Lights here today going into turn number 1. That 1-2 combination, sketchy, a little bit of runoff area, but guys are going to get a good room and a good run on you. There's lots of room there. What are your thoughts going into the first start of the weekend here at Barber?
It's just going to be all about getting a clean getaway in the punch-off zone there, and then just holding my line into turn 1, and then getting a good run out of turn 2 and 3 so nobody can pass me into 5. That'll be the key.
One last question. Last year you were a front runner. You were in the championship chase with Nico Jamit and Jake Edson, USF 2000. You had a lot of confidence there. What's your confidence level now compared to last year, already having won a race here in 2016?
Yeah, I mean, my confidence level is really high right now. It was high last year, too. Things just didn't come together. But so far this year, coming out of the box with a second and first place in St. Pete, now on the pole here at Barber, I couldn't ask for much more.
And good luck this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Pro Mazda drivers go again this afternoon, followed by USF 2000. Guys, lots of Mazda Road to Indy action here, and you're going to watch this guy here start from pole position, Aaron Thielitz.
Appreciate that so much, Rob Howden. So cool to catch up with some of these young drivers that quite frankly, Davey, they want to do what these drivers are doing, are running in Indy Lights, and ultimately these drivers would love to get to the Verizon IndyCar Series.
It is the road to Indy, and Mazda is a huge supporter of that road to Indy. Dan Anderson does such a great job, and that's to try to start in the 2000s, go to the Pro Mazdas, and then into the Mazda Indy Lights. So, and then the hope is, after that, get into the big cars, get into the Verizon IndyCar Series cars, and that's where it all happens. So this is definitely great to see these kids try to make their way to the up the ladder.
Leaders making their way through turns 15, 16, and 17 here as they cross the stripe. Going to see 10 laps to go. Ed Jones has stretched that lead out to about 0.6 of a second. At the line this time, it's going to be at about a full second. So Ed Jones starting to stretch that lead out just a bit, Davey. I know it's just speculation. We saw Felix Morales really push hard to try to catch him. Ed Jones maybe saved a little bit in the tank.
Yeah, I think he was, and I just kind of go back to lap times. Jones's lap time last time by was a 16.6. Morales was a 17.1, so a half a second off Jones. So that tells me that Jones was kind of cruising, saving his tires. And then I look down through the rest of the field. It looks like everybody's just dropping off a little bit in lap times, and that goes to what is supposed to do. That's supposed to be tire wear. That's one thing that in motorsports and especially our sport, that is part of the strategy, is making sure your tires live throughout the entire run of the race.
Leaders just making their way past Jake Query there at the bottom of the hill. We'll pick him up and give him a Jake on the following lap with just 10 laps to go. Getting a good look. Shelby Blackstock is making Zach Veach really earn this podium position here today.
Yeah, and I continue to talk about Blackstock. I just think he's done a great job, especially after the struggles that they had last year. And one thing that I did notice on the start, I just don't think he was comfortable yet. He's never been on a front row. All of a sudden with Stoneman not being able to take that front row start and move Blackstock up there, he really didn't even contend for it. He fell back to third or fourth just immediately. So just back to that experience, just one step at a time, never been on a front row before, not really knowing how to come down with Ed Jones, and Ed Jones just took off, kind of left Blackstock, hanging where he is right now, but he has the pace right now to be in the lead as well.
Leaders make their way down towards Charlotte's Web. We call it that portion of the racetrack because there's a large giant sculpture of a spider down there at the exit of turns number 5 and 6. Jake Query, the leaders are going to be headed to you in just a moment, but the battle we're keeping an eye on is for third. Zach Veach has it, and Shelby Blackstock's been hounding him all day.
Really, really good battle, as a matter of fact. That red machine with white trim of Zach Veach, then just behind him, red machine black trim of Shelby Blackstock. They're starting to become a red machine all mixed together based on the fact that Blackstock is right there on him. Veach not able to shake that 51, but still holding him off, Nick.
Let's go to pit lane, and actually we've got a car that has stopped on the racetrack. That is Kyle Kaiser, the points leader and the winner in Phoenix. It is a local yellow in turn number 7, but Kyle Kaiser, who was running 5th, has come to a stop. The Homatro safety crew now pulling that car off the racetrack. What a hit for the points leader with 8 laps to go. But let's go back to pit lane. When we get more on what happened to Shelby Blackstock, to Kyle Kaiser, we'll update it. But let's get some updates from pit lane. We'll start with Dave first.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Shelby Blackstock hasn't finished any better than 11th so far this season. Remember, he's a guy who was 4th in Pro Mazda a couple years ago, 10th last year at Indy Lights. Mike Reggio makes the calls down here for Andretti Autosport and Shelby Blackstock. Shelby's having a tremendous start to the weekend, is he not?
Yeah, it's going fantastic so far. It's a shame you can't pass anybody around this place. So,
well, that would help. Certainly, that would help. But I mean, he seems very comfortable here. You guys tested here a week ago. How much do you think that helped?
It was a huge help. Yeah, we found a lot of stuff during that test.
His development as a driver, what's been key for Shelby, do you think?
Consistency, having teammates. He's got a driver coach he's working with this year, so that's helped. Everything's helped out.
We'll let you get back to it. Shelby Blackstock right now 4th. Darren Manning, a longtime IndyCar Series driver. He's been helping coach Shelby this season as well, and certainly that has to help. Rob?
Further down pit lane here, a couple of notes. Actually had a chance to talk to the guys from Juncos Racing in regards to Kyle Kaiser. Kaiser just called in, said the engine went into limp mode. Not sure what it was, but the engine essentially just shut off, went down to minimal power. He had to pull the car off the racetrack. And To go back to the first couple laps of this race and that contact between Santiago Urrutia and Felix Rosenqvist, Davey, you talked about patience and let the race come to you, let your car come to you. If you look at fast laps of the race right now, who has the fast lap? The driver who showed no patience, Santiago Urrutia, 1:15.354. He actually has the fastest car on the racetrack right now, but he's down in 11th position for that issue he had at the start of the race.
Yeah, and that goes to show you just have to have that patience, because you don't know what your car is going to do at the start of the race or towards the end of the run with wore out tires. And obviously he has a great race car at the end of a run where that's where you want to be the fastest, because that's when the checkered flag comes out, right? That's where you want to be at that checkered flag when the race is over, and you want to be the quickest car. He's there, but he penalized himself early on in this race, and so it left him no chance to win it.
Boy, Zach Veach kicks up a little dirt as he continues to try to hold off Shelby Blackstock. That was through the turns 11
we see
and
him
12.
pull off too. It looks like Zach Veach just lost power.
Oh, and look at this battle for the lead, Davey. The battle for the lead is tightened up as Ed Jones was very slow through the carousel. We'll see as they roar out. Zach Veach has maintained that third position, but certainly there are a lot of drivers starting to tighten it up. The battle for the lead is on in turn 1. Felix Sorales is all over it, and the car that came to a stop, I misidentified. That's actually Felix Rosenqvist. Yeah, the teammate of Zach Veach. But Michael Young, the battle for the lead is on with 6 laps to go.
And I think that may have been what happened. Rosenqvist was crawling down the back straightaway, and when Ed Jones came upon him, he was going a lot slower than he thought. Nice braking job by Felix Sorales. The gap now widens back to about 5 car lengths, but it is certainly close. Shelby Blackstock now starting to close in on Zach Veach. Just 6 laps to go, but that battle for the lead continues.
Yeah, Rosenqvist came limping through here last time by, and it was in between 10 and 11 when Jones came flying up on him. Jones appears to now have gotten that breathing room back. The distance is the same between himself and his teammate Felix Sorales.
Davey, as we talked about, is that maybe just for Ed Jones of trying to reestablish that rhythm after getting shaken up on that previous lap?
Yeah, that's lap traffic for you. If you catch a guy in the wrong place, sometimes it's more beneficial to be in that second position. Look at Sorales taking a low line down to those last corners and turns 14, 15 in that area. And it seems like he gains, but coming onto this front straightaway, coming off that final corner into turn 1, seems like Jones can pull out that 5 or 6 car length lead for the rest of the circuit.
Yeah, Sorales can get close through the carousel, but Jones gets a much better run, but he smokes the tires in turn 2. Here comes Sorales on the inside of the racetrack. Michael Young, this may be his opportunity, as close as he's been as they roar out of turn number 4.
He locked him up earlier trying to advance on Ed Jones. What will Sorales do this time by? Brakes in deep, closes in on that rear wing. Now Ed Jones back on the throttle, able to gap it again, and that is the part of the track that Sorales really loses on. The Alabama roller coaster, that is where Ed Jones is good. Really pulled out to a nice lead, 7 car lengths to turn 8.
In a race where patience for the leaders has paid off with attrition behind them, now's the time when they get on their giddy-up. Felix Sorales trying to close in on his teammate Ed Jones, can't make up the difference between 9 and 10.
5 laps to go, back to pit lane. Dave first, what's the update on Felix Rosenqvist?
Flat left front tire for Felix Rosenqvist. So it was a quick change for the Bilardi Auto Racing guys, but tell you what, for the man that was sitting 3rd in points, all of a sudden this is turning into a disastrous start to the weekend. Good news is, doubleheader, get back out there tomorrow.
Lots of opportunity to try to make up some points, and Sorales runs wide. Sorales runs wide and kicks up a ton of dirt at the exit of turn number 17. He's going to give up a ton of ground as he tried to run down the leader. Zach Veach, running 3rd, is not close enough to challenge and grab that 2nd spot, but Michael Young described the distance as they roar out of turn 4.
Boy, he got off of those rumble strips out of turn 17, Nick Yeoman. Nearly lost control of the car. He's lost in the turn in that braking area where he was down to 1 car length. It's now 8 car lengths. The gap between Ed Jones and Felix Sorales is now about 20 car lengths. Same back to Zach Veach. The good battle, or I should say the better battle shaping up, is that between Veach and Shelby Blackstock.
Blackstock trying to peek his way in. This is the battle for 3rd. The gap about 2 car lengths between Veach and Blackstock. Then you wait quite a while, and then it's that machine of Clayman DeMello. Long behind him, R.C. Enerson. Behind Enerson, you get to Felix Rosenqvist.
Davey, that battle for 3rd has just been spectacular for about the last 15 to 20 laps. Where can Shelby Blackstock make a move to possibly get around that?
Well, that's the question. It's so tough to pass here. Really, the best passing zone's going down into Charlotte's Web, and yeah, you know, everybody has that. These cars are so pinned down, it's really hard to even pass there. But I'll have to say that all Blackstock is doing right now is putting pressure on Veach just to try to make him, make a mistake. But then the guy running in second place, Sorales, he's making mistake after mistake trying to catch his teammate, Ed Jones, and it seems like he's losing ground.
1.2 seconds from Jones back to Sorales. Another 1.4 from Sorales back to Veach, but Michael Young, Shelby Blackstock looks to the inside.
Nice move by Shelby Blackstock. Took a peek on Zach Veach that time. Right tucked up under the rear wing is Shelby Blackstock on Zach Veach. The battle for third and fourth rages out of turn number 7. Veach able to gap it about 2 car lengths. That is a battle for third and fourth. Jake Query, it's to you.
Jones and Sorales comfortable letting those two sling it out behind them. As a matter of fact, 25 car length advantage between second and third. But the advantage is only a quarter of that between Veach and then right behind him, Shelby Blackstock.
2.5 laps to go here at Barber Motorsports Park. Back to pit lane quickly to Rob Howden.
Just a quick note, guys. Look at this top 7 right now. We have 6 teams here on pit lane, and all 6 teams have at least one driver in the top 7. Yeah, it's a Carlin 1-2, and we're going to have our 4th winner of the year if Ed Jones can hold on here, but 6 different teams in the top 7.
So good to see that competition continue week after week. 2 to go for Ed Jones as he runs across the stripe. The distance from him back to Felix Sorales was at 1.2. It's now down to 9/10 of a second. So Sorales shaved about 3/10 as they roar through the Alabama roller coaster. Michael Young, he's not close enough to pass him, but it appears it's tightening up there for the lead.
What could have been for Felix Sorales? He really lost a lot of ground, and that was a portion of the course he made up the most ground on. Ed Jones was down in the final complex, 15, 16, and 17. Just got those rights off, lost all that ground. But he, again, as you had said, Nick Yeoman, is closing back up. The battle for third and fourth kind of broken apart. Shelby Blackstock took a look on Zach Veach, but doesn't look like he's in range to make a pass now.
You know, just to the naked eye, it appears as though Sorales has really closed that gap on Jones. Problem is, Nick, as they work their way in through turn number 10, you wonder if he's running out of time if he wants to try to make a move.
Lap and a half to go here at Barber Motorsports Park. It is the front 4 that have checked out on this field and have dominated for the most part of the day. Ed Jones has the lead. Felix Sorales runs second. Then it's a battle for third between Veach and Blackstock. Here come the leaders through the carousel out of turn number 17. Ed Jones is going to see the white flag. The gap back from him to Sorales was at 9/10 of a second. It's going to be a lot closer than that as they cross the line. It's going to be at 7/10 of a second. Sorales, can he make it up here on the final lap through Alabama roller coaster? It is Ed Jones and his teammate Felix Sorales. Jones takes a wide line, Michael Young, out of turn number 4 as he makes his way in front of you for the final time.
Ed Jones, podium finisher here at Barber Motorsports Park in race number 2 last year, in command from the very beginning. As Shelby Blackstock closes in, breaks deep on Zach Veach. So Jones, a good car length advantage, about 8 car lengths over Sorales, and that battle again for third is Veach and Shelby Blackstock, and we have Clayman DeMello running P5.
That elevation change for the final time. The leader, Ed Jones, 10 car lengths in front of Felix Sorales. Wait just a bit, then you get Veach. Veach has had his mirrors full for a while now of that number 51 of Shelby Blackstock. They move through turn number 10. Blackstock still trying to reel him in.
And Felix Sorales, the front end of that race car just came off the ground through the backstretch. He lost a ton of time to the leader, Ed Jones. Now can he nurse it home for second? Here comes the leader, though. Ed Jones out of the final turn, turn 17. He'll see the checkered flag and win his first race of 2016. Sorales will lift that car across the line in second. Zach Veach will end up third. Shelby Blackstock with a hard-earned 4th place finish, and Zachary Clayman DeMello will finish 5th. Ed Jones will pump that fist through the Alabama roller coaster. Day first, a hard-earned victory and a 1-2 finish for Carlin Racing.
Trevor Carlin got exactly what he wanted, a 1-2 finish, and the cars are fine too at the end of the day. Congratulations.
Yeah, chuffed at this. It's a fantastic job. I mean, Felix did a brilliant job to get through from, I don't even know where he started, 12th or something. So, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, 1-2, can't believe it.
On to tomorrow already. The goal is to repeat, I'm assuming?
Well, it'll be difficult. I mean, hopefully Ed can get the win, and hopefully Felix can get some good points. So, yeah, we're very pleased. It's a great day's work.
And for Ed, how big is this? It's been a while since he's won a race.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It'll be great for his confidence, and I'll just see him getting better and better now. So next time, we're going to win the Indy race.
Have a great afternoon. I think you will.
Thank you very much.
Trevor Carlin gets the win. 1-2 finish, 4th career win for Ed Jones.
Yeah, big day for Trevor Carlin and Davey. Ed Jones, I mean, he had his teammate Felix Morales all over the rear wing all day long. He certainly earned this victory here.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Good run. I mean, he had to earn it. You know what I mean? Even though he started on that pole, he led every lap. But with Morales behind him and putting pressure on him like that, and by the way, in Morales, you know, he started 11th. Pretty impressive. So when Ed Jones is on the pole, knowing his teammate started at 11th, and next thing you know he's in second, that tells him he's had a fast race car and had some brakes and the pressure was going to be on him. But what a great job by them. I tell you what, Zach Veach did a great job hanging on because Blackstock put pressure on him from the green flag.
I'm hoping I get to see a replay of that final lap because Felix Morales, I swear, off the backstretch, he kicked up a ton of dirt, and I think he hit a pair of the rumble strips that sent the front end of that car off the ground just for a split second as he was just trying to get every inch. But still, a tremendous effort and a tremendous 1-2 finish for Carlin Racing. Here's how they finish here in Barber Motorsports Park for the Legacy Indy Lights race number 1. These are results, of course, unofficial. Ed Jones takes the checkered flag. It is his first win of 2016. His teammate Felix Morales brings home that second Carlin car, the number 4 in home in second. Zach Veach finishes third. A nice run for that young man for Bilardi Auto Racing. Shelby Blackstock with one of his best finishes in his career finishes 4th. Zachary Clayman DeMello, what an impressive run by him. We knew he was fast from qualifying second, but after failing tech had to start at the rear of the field. He charges all the way to 5th. R.C. Enerson looked like he had a podium going in the early goings of this race. A little contact with Scott Hargrove kicked him to a 6th place finish. Juan Pedro Hita had a quiet yet efficient day. He'll come home in 7th. Andre Negrao finishes 8th. Dalton Kellett, the rookie for Andretti Autosport, finishes 9th. And Scott Anderson, who wasn't able to make it out for qualifying, does a good job of avoiding any type of issues and bringing that car home in the top 10. Ed Jones in victory lane, though. He gets to celebrate on top of that car. Hands and fists in the air as he celebrates his first win of 2016. The rest of that finishing order, it was Santi Urrutia who comes home in 11th. Neil Albarico still struggling to get up to speed. His Carlin teammates go 1-2, but he can only muster a 12th place finish. Scott Hargrove had a good race car. We'll see if he can mix it up tomorrow as he finishes 13th. Felix Rosenquist had some issues. He finishes 3 laps down in 14th. Kyle Kaiser 9 laps down with mechanical issues in 18th. Dean Stoneman will finish 16th. Let's go to victory lane. Rob Howden, you're there with a very happy young man.
Yeah, Ed Jones has got a big smile on his face right now out of the car, pumped his fist. It's been a year since you scored victory in the series after getting such a great start to 2015. But things have been going your way. A 2nd place in Phoenix, and man, a dominant day today. Talk about how you feel about this win today.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic result for myself and the team. You know, me and my guys, my engineer Jeff, we've been working so hard. You know, after it's been so long since we had a win. We've been so fast all the time, and things just haven't played our way. So it's great to finally get back to the top and may it continue.
What about that pressure from your teammate? Felix was putting all sorts of pressure on you throughout that race.
Yeah, it was very tough. Felix was pushing hard. I was conserving the Cooper tires a bit because they did degrade quite a lot in that race, so it was tough for that. Then with the Mazda engine pushed to pass, it was really effective, and so sometimes I could see when he was using it, and I just had to cover him with those. But yeah, it was a bit of a chess game. But I held him off, so yeah, it's great team result.
Able to learn enough stuff for tomorrow to make a better race car?
Yeah, definitely. We got a few things.
Good luck.
Can do. Yeah.
Ed Jones, folks, what a fantastic run for him. Again, his last victory, folks, was Long Beach last year, and he's happy to win here today. Let's over to Dave first.
And Felix Morales comes home 2nd, although he's celebrating like he may have won the race. This is big for you, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I started P12. I got my lap taken away in qualifying and started all the way in the back, and to finish P2, you know, before the race, I was really angry, and I told myself I'm going to finish in the podium. I really did. I was angry there driving, and I pushed like hell, and I made it to the podium.
You're driving angry, you say, huh?
Yes, I definitely was.
How close? I mean, you put the pressure on Ed there, and tell us about what happened on that last lap. We saw you kick up a lot of dust there.
Yeah, I could put the pressure on Ed, but obviously there's just a really fast track and a lot of elevation change, so it's really difficult to overtake. But obviously in the last lap, I saved up one push to pass and I hit it. Obviously coming through 10 and 12, I lost the rear bit, which pushed me up a bit wide, and then I just hit the grass and the floor dug in and sent me flying a little bit. But luckily I didn't crash. But I was pushing. I wanted to win, obviously, but second is all right.
Great start to the weekend.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good luck tomorrow. Felix Sorales comes home second here at Barber Motorsports Park so far this weekend.
Sent him flying a little bit.
Well, you caught that.
Those
too,
are his
Nick.
exact words,
Yeah,
Davey.
you caught that. You know, I was watching later, and you seen one of the camera angles that seen his front end flying in there. And usually to do that means you have to hit one of the exit roads or one of the emergency roads coming on the racetrack, and obviously he did that.
Hey, I saw a car come flying at me at RC Anderson a year ago at Toronto, so
oh yeah, that's right.
Got to keep an eye out for that. How about the final step on the podium? Dave, first our sub-driver analyst, Zach Veach, with a tremendous third-place finish here.
You know, he's a pretty good driver analyst. One hell of a race car driver, too, coming home third. Zach, tell us about your race here this afternoon.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I'm happy to be in a race car this weekend, but I do miss you guys. But no, it's just we were starting sixth. I think I fell back to like ninth on the start. We had some, bad luck, just got pushed out. But somehow I managed to come home third. I mean, I got to thank my guys, Mazda, Cooper Tire, everybody for working so hard, because at the beginning of this day, I was really concerned that, this race was going to be a bad one for us, and it turned out to be one of my favorites.
If you like today, you may love tomorrow. Good luck tomorrow, okay?
Thank you so much.
Zach Veach comes home third, a podium finish.
Ed Jones, Felix Sorales, and Zach Veach, your podium. Davey, some final thoughts. Usually when you got a doubleheader weekend, the first race seems to be calm, and then they can really turn them loose for the second race. This was a wild opening 5 to 10 laps.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll see that much action at the start tomorrow. I think everybody kind of learned, especially the guys that made the mistakes, learned what not to do, and then the guys that have good finishes say, okay, we got to do the same thing. But I think we'll have more people in contingent tomorrow. Obviously, the starting lineup changes up again for tomorrow's race, and I'm excited. I'm excited to watch these guys. I'm glad that the Indy Lights have 16 cars here today. That's a good car count for those guys with these new race cars, and I see it growing.
Good job today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
We're going to be back for IndyCar qualifying a little bit later. Final show of the day here on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. IndyCar qualifying with Mark Janes and Davey Hamilton here in the booth. Jake will be in his familiar spot out in the museum. I'm going to go topside on the roof. Dave first, Rob Howden will be on pit lane. We'll come on the air at 3:55 Eastern. That is 2:55 local time here in Alabama. Again, congratulations to Ed Jones, who scores the victory. Felix Sorales with a hard-earned second place finish, and Zach Veach, who grabs the third spot on the podium. This is just race 1 of 2, the Indy Lights Series. They'll go racing again tomorrow at 1:20 Eastern here on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network. Great job by Davey Hamilton, Michael Young, Jake Query, and our pit reporters Dave First and Rob Howden. I'm Nick Yeoman, and we will see you a little bit later this afternoon for IndyCar qualifying on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
This is the Verizon IndyCar Series on the Advanced Auto Parts IndyCar Radio Network.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race. A.J. Foyt, our winner. The flag will fly now for Tom Sneva and then for Al Unser. We will be talking with all of these drivers in just a moment. Lou Palmer is in victory lane as A.J. Foyt takes now his victory lap around the 2.5 miles of Indianapolis. A record-breaking end to a record-breaking month. A.J. Foyt, the 4th win at Indianapolis. A month that saw the 200-mile-an-hour barrier broken, not just in the practice where it is unofficial, but in the qualifying by Tom Sneva, our second-place car at the moment. And then, too, the first woman